How are you?
Well, if you get down to the corner here, I'm still taking advantage of this one.
Hi. Yeah, I did so much else again. It's not so good.
And so,
Yeah. Well, tomorrow I'm gonna say, well, it's fun. We did last weekend, you're not gonna work it's down.
Yeah, I guess the guy who was real.
That's our long hike.
I'll do some of them.
You know, it's spelled safe.
We looked at it as a real.
It is.
Just started to change too.
I know, we yeah, we had thought we might see some, but they're really starting to change. And then, I think the next week at last week. Just started to hear it too. It's higher elevation. We're over.
I'm looking at work issues right now.
Which is the very west of, almost west. Yeah, I have brothers got a place there.
Okay, great. So at least you get some.
So they like this. I like that. It is. And I was. My husband lived in Bowie for a while.
Oh, yeah.
So we were, so I knew was dating at the time, so we were, you know, it was, do you want to come to see a girl or to? We loved Annapolis and the Ocean State. There's so much good food and stuff. Yeah, I.
But I like Western.
Yeah, it's very different. It's more like drugs. Not like drugs. Yeah. Your Seven Springs, Vermont, yeah, west of, it's east of, foothills of Walmart.
So.
We're there, we like everywhere. People all here, so you know.
I might know.
Yeah, I just, that's the next one there, so I didn't know.
No, understood. How's the trip? Very good.
There's you, right?
No, I've got one. I'm probably feeling DC. I've got one.
Got back, was you about coming back?
What part of North Carolina?
Going over, it was Columbus, Newark, Munich, Istanbul, touchdown. Coming back, it was Istanbul, Munich,
She came on.
Dulles, Washington, Columbus. Four
I'll
lanes.
be able to see some beautiful.
Like fun.
Right. You know, that's true.
If you're gonna do that kind of stuff, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I traveled all the way over and back with DG. Yep, she was
Next couple
an
weekends.
observer as well. So I was over with her. DG Wilhelm, yeah. And she's done long-term observations. She's done like 2 or 3 long-term observations. She's been in the post for a while. She was asked to pass on this one too. She did. You know, but that escaped.
Yeah.
But DG was saying,
My
you're
son
really
is
good
kind
at
of
this,
a,
Scott.
have a sort of, last year was.
Scott would enjoy this. And I said, well, Scott's had his comments about traveling that much and doing something along those lines. I tend to agree with her on that.
It's not my late.
I brought up a white tablet. Do you have a couple extra?
I think I took that from you.
Oh.
You want some of mine back?
Oh, no, I just brought up a couple, I was trying
No,
to.
I've got this and I've got another one. I think I took
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, no, that's yours.
Thank you.
So DG at least, think you do.
It's been about 4 years.
I'm gonna vote for Doug Metz. I don't like those long flights, those small airplanes.
Right.
We went to Charleston,
Love Hawaii.
South Carolina, and
My husband's always.
it was like, she was on this. I said, that's not an emergency. I said,
No.
I can suck her for an hour.
Yeah.
Literally, I mean, I'm in the seat, so my knees are kind of chair ahead of me.
The only time I was really uncomfortable.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Looks like time to.
Was,
Yeah.
it's one that goes 242. I was the second seat in. And there was, when I went and actually got in the seat, there was this lady who was like literally packing her bag. And as I look over, she's got oranges in there and a whole bunch of. Hopefully she'll get one. And so, you know, and it varies to her, she's eating one way or another. What substantial person, the other side of the here. And so I was, you know, in there like this. And I couldn't lean back. I slept on my neck was dying. So I was able to get at least reasonably comfortable. Pre-COVID, walking to Australia. I remember you talking about Nicky's brother product. And they told us to take these last 2 seasons. They said there'll be 2 and you'll have room. Well, unfortunately, it was where the planes curved back. And so the 2 seats had less than a second. But it was great. I stood in the back alley and I said, I know 5 hours or so. Do it today, right? Probably wouldn't be allowed. No.
Top part of
And then
All this rabbit hole.
Right.
So we got together.
Dee said she thought she heard him say, hey, this is a full flight. One of the flights, flights to, only one flight from Munich to Washington. And then afterwards, she said, boy, I'm glad I got that one. It wasn't, you know, I was told it wasn't a full flight. And I said, you had nobody sitting next to you, didn't you? She said, yeah, I said, I had people sitting next to me. Our flights, I didn't have quite the same. My flight, Charlotte, this was on back, every single seat. Every single time was on the flight over to, I had 3 seats and I was the only one. So I was,
How long is that flight from Newark? 8 hours?
about 8 hours.
Yeah.
You leave at about 5 o'clock
That's good.
and you don't sleep. Pretty much I watch movies the whole time. You get in at like 8 in the morning. The next morning, you know, so.
We have confirmation that Tasha's coming?
I've not heard anything from Tasha and I haven't looked at it. So
One of these.
I do. Gonna run and grab one?
does she need a legal pad?
Okay.
Not right now, before the hearing.
So when we take a 5-minute recess for this, what do you do?
We're gonna do this stuff anyway, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does.
Oh, well.
I figured, I usually.
So it was, I said that Uzbekistan is probably the
This
cleanest.
was grab, just.
Don't
I
get me
grabbed
wet.
this one just because certain items. Usually these things down there.
It was very nice.
Someone that's got 3 sheets.
I have them all of them.
So I'm like, I'm gonna take this off. That'll be official.
Wow, literal, almost everywhere.
How are the accommodations?
Accommodations were good. We stayed in the capital city. We stayed in Hampton. Hampton by Hilton. And it was only about a year old. So it's what they were saying. So it was really nice. And even the one out was, I mean, it was a small hotel. It was like it was very well maintained. Good breakfast. They provided it. So I mean, the accommodations never great. But I will say the 2 things I make myself sound very important. Have you ever been billed $1 million for anything?
I misremember what time I
I've been hit for $1 million and it's doing perfect.
The exchange rate is 0.00094 stone per dollar. It's the Becky stone. And so, my hotel bill, my original hotel bill was 1,600,000. So, and the equivalent of about $170.
Do you pay that at the tour or how does that get paid? Or do we do it?
I got paid that. I pay that, and then I've either gotten it in a cash advance that I got, or I get reimbursed. I got it for the reimbursement.
I did you?
But I was throwing 100,000. I was going out of style.
Wow.
Bill's just spending millions.
I was spending $1 million.
Spend the
Maybe,
money.
you know, if you don't, if you're not.
I'll make this. It was like, we would have lunch, and I'd pay 2/3 of the bill for both my driver and my internal, along with my partner. Because for 4 people, your bill would be 240,000, 250,000, so $25. And
Wow.
it wasn't like we were just getting little meals. These were, it was really cheap.
Sounds like.
Sounds like a place to go.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah,
Sounds like being like Cumberland.
it was really cheap. So,
Did you get to do any places?
yeah, a little bit.
Good.
I spent Monday, we were back in, I was back in the capital city on Monday.
This is.
And, it was just, you waited there all day until you went out at night to fly.
I'm glad, I'm glad for this.
I literally walked 5 hours around
Um,
the city of Tashkent, just seeing,
Wow.
just walking around,
I just-
seeing the city, because it was absolutely.
People like rest.
I'm just sitting here enjoying the beverage.
Yeah, but it doesn't. This business here, you don't. I haven't heard.
No, not at all.
No.
Anybody object? No, I don't. I stand up. Oh, there it is. Okay, you ready to do it? Hold on a second. Let me- See if I can- I think I got it.
If not, you don't.
Well, I think I got it here. Here's your tax story.
I think.
Oh, you
3 hours left.
That's what you're doing, right?
Yeah, that's the thought is.
I think maybe step out and call her as opposed to texting her in case she's trying.
Well, that's kind of my thought.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
right.
Most important person. So you ready to go?
All right, we're ready to proceed.
Okay. All right, I'd like to call the October 28th, 2021 Ohio Elections Commission meeting to order.
You have to take notes now, Phil.
If you go ahead and take this, I will take the roll. Ms. Tavares.
Here.
Mr. Bronner.
Here.
Mr. Norman.
Here.
Ms. Cunningham.
Here.
Vice Chair Beatty.
Here.
Chair Price. Here. 6 of the 7 members are present.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ritter.
Mhm.
Go ahead and continue. We'll expect arrival of the final board member here. Yep. All right, let's move on to approval of the regular meeting minutes of October 7th, 2021. Everyone should have received a copy of that. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Someone.
We have a second. Second. All right, we have the motion that's been duly seconded. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries by a vote of 6-0. Moving on to the preliminary reviews. The first one this morning is case number 2021G-010, McIntyre versus Shaw et al. At the recommendation of the executive director, we're going to go ahead and consolidate that with case 2020R-351. Mr. Richter?
Yeah, this is a case where the complainant is alleging that the respondent not only failed to file some of the campaign finance reports, but has filed some incomplete and inaccurate campaign finance reports. And also failed to include a proper disclaimer on certain campaign materials. All of that was laid out in the complaint, which you would have received. The materials for which there were no disclaimer wasn't included therein. The reason why I'm recommending consolidation with the case, you can see it down toward the bottom there, 2021. That was a referral that we received from a Summit County board. It is still pending for the complainant's failure to file a 2018 annual report. This complaint also contains an allegation of failing to file that report along with failing to file the 2020 annual. And so I'm recommending that we consolidate that for efficiency as much as anything. We have not gotten a response from the respondent. We do have a green card in the file. The service was confirmed. Mr. McIntyre is here and present, and the commission will hear from him. If Ms. Shaw is present, then we could hear from her. Otherwise, we don't have a response from the respondent. And so, Mr. McIntyre, if you want to come up and be sworn and make a statement to the commission, you can do so, or if you don't want to, that's fine too.
No, sure.
state your name, swear from the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you.
Mr. McIntyre, can you come to the podium so we can all see you, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. McIntyre, would you state your name for the record, please?
Jeremy McIntyre.
Okay, well, is there any other, if you would like to make an additional statement or just a general statement to the commission concerning your complaint, you'd be welcome to do so.
The only additional information that I would add is, I did get a letter from the commission noting the time change from 10 to 9, and in that letter it indicated that the respondent should, once they are notified of the failure to file, they should file immediately. And as of last night, when I did some research, she still hadn't made the filings of those, the ones that I claim in the complaint. Secondly, more importantly, additional information has been found as far as additional campaign contributions that haven't been disclosed that are separate from what's in the complaint, but nonetheless should have been on the same report.
Questions of Mr. McIntyre?
Well, and you can see my recommendation at the bottom of
To consolidate the two
the
cases.
consolidate. I forgot to put consolidated in there, but then to find a violation, and impose a fine of $25 per day with reconsideration option, or, the violations as alleged, and I would tend to agree with, I just looked online. I tried to put in a call to the staff at the Summit County Board this morning, but I didn't get a call back. If you looked at what is reflected on the Summit County website, it shows a variety of reports for 2019, 2021, but it doesn't show anything for 2018, or 2018 annual or 2020 annual. And so with that being the case, my recommendation is to find a violation and impose a fine of $25 per day with reconsideration option, but give her the ability to have matter reconsider with a payment of $500. That's my recommendation. You can further discuss if the commission wants to do anything else. I would say the rather more substantial $500 amount is partially due to the fact that included in the complaint are allegations of failure to include a disclaimer, or if you look at the materials, there's no disclaimer on them. And so I factored that into my recommendation. I don't feel like we can give a specific fine amount because there are outstanding finance that we need to file. So that's my long-winded explanation of my recommendation. Commissioners, any other questions? I'll go ahead and answer the questions. If they have any questions of Mr. McIntyre.
Any other questions of Mr. McIntyre? Mr. McIntyre, please feel free to sit down. Questions of Mr. Richard Meyer, Commission? If not, is there a motion?
I move that we follow the executive director's recommendation.
All right, we have a motion that's been made to follow the recommendation of the executive director, which has been duly seconded. Any further discussion on that? If not, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries by a vote of 6-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next two cases we'll take together. First of all, case 2021G-011 and 2021G-012, T Green versus Citizens for Change Act et al. There are two separate complaints, and Mr. Cleaner is here from the Italian Colombo Law Office on behalf of the complainant. We can hear from him further if he wants to expand why there are two separate complaints. I mean, one essentially alleges failure to comply with Ohio's independent expenditure statute. The other reflects improper activity by a federal political committee, which the state Citizens for Change is, that is not properly registered with the Secretary of State. Under Ohio law, a federal political action committee has an ability to participate in Ohio elections, but before it makes that first expenditure, it is obligated to file a copy of its statement of organization with the Secretary of State's office, and that has not been done. So those are the two essential allegations. We could potentially consolidate these matters. Again, I'd probably ask for Mr. Cleaner's further statement on that if the whole did it.
But essentially, the bottom line, I'm recommending a continuance on both of these matters because, if you look at the notes, it's looking at it online last night. There's no green card in the file. In case 011, in looking online, it reflected that service was only accomplished on Monday. And in 012, the last notation was that it was sent out yesterday for delivery, but there was nothing in there about service yesterday. So I'm guessing we don't have service on the respondent in 012 at this point. And so as it relates to 11, there, there's not, essentially the person doesn't have 21 days from our date of service. And the other one, it doesn't appear we've got service yet on the respondent. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. That bottom line of continuing these, because we don't have service.
Do you have any objection to the continuance of these two matters based upon what Mr. just said?
No objection. To be honest with my client would certainly prefer the fine violation today to save very legal fees, but given these facts with service, he can control the matter. And then we also have no objection to consolidating cases.
At this stage, it seems that we can't consolidate because we need to get the sponsor.
That's true. All right, so case 2021G-011 has been continued for service, and case 2021G-012 has been continued for service. And the record should note that I had no objection. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now, before we start generally with the groups, I will ask everybody to look at those. In your packets today, you got updated ICWs. And case number 2021R-230 is included in the update. It was not on the original matters that I circulated to everybody. This has, okay, is the Friends of Dan Hazard, Daniel Hazard candidate, William Laranaga, treasurer. This was originally before the commission in early September. The complainant did submit a response. The reports are filed. The candidate requested the matter be continued. After going back and forth, I agreed to put it on today. Mr. Hazard, Judge Hazard is here and would like to address the commission. My recommendation is to find a violation and impose a fine of $50. You have the outline of his response there. Certainly, we could have the candidate sworn and make an additional statement.
I do.
Judge, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First, I apologize. I've been on the road since 5 o'clock, and apparently the supply chain problems that we're having extend to the stock of men's tie that both Meyer and so I apologize. I would never consider becoming being appropriate tired. I appreciate you hearing from me. I sent an email yesterday to Mr. Hughes, and it was late in the day, but I did extend him that I have no quibble with any of the facts laid out. So I'm not disagreeing with any of that. What I would like to do would be to kind of put some context around it, and I'm not going to take any more of your time than necessary. Essentially, the two charges. We'll start with the first one. The first one is failing to provide the proper documentation of bank fees in the annual report. My bank was bought out by another bank. The bank fees went up. It put us over the threshold by $3. When that happened, it apparently triggered a reporting requirement that I was unaware of. Not only was I unaware of it, but my treasurer was unaware of it. And to put more context, my treasurer is a professional. He's not part of the political class. He's a professional that lives in Toledo, drives to Detroit every day, busy guy. So that was the first thing. The second thing was reporting loans that had previously been reported in prior annual reports. The form had been submitted. When I found out about this, and I'll get back into how I found out about it in just a second, but when I found out about this, I went to the people of the 2 loans that I had received and told them, hey, this is coming up. Apparently there was a reporting requirement that we violated. Both of them said, I thought those loans were forgiven a long time ago. Or we forgave those loans a long time ago. We subsequently filed an amended report indicating that. So we should be square with the Board of Elections. As to how we got to this point, again, my treasurer is a professional, he's young. And every time this came up, I had conversations where I was assured it was being taken care of and that there was a contact with the Board of Elections. While I was on vacation camping, I don't know where we were, Hocking Hills, I got a call from my father. There's a registered letter here for you. Got a hold of him. Oh, I was trying to take care of that. It never got taken care of. When it did, we had to chase around the bank because it got bought out and then got moved. We chased the bank to get the proper submissions, submitted those. Mr. Richter and Mr. Hughes have been nothing but accommodating. And I don't disagree with anything they said. What I'm trying to avoid is I always try to do the right thing and always accomplish that. And I'm trying to avoid a blemish on my record because it relates to me over granted filing inaccuracies, but started with a $3 charge on a $3 bank fee to put us over the threshold and loans that had already been forgiven. So I'm at your mercy. I understand what it means to stipulate all the facts. I understand that I have no defense. I'm just trying to avoid this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jay.
Or for taking questions.
Questions? Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm comfortable with I appreciate his statements, don't get me wrong. I'm comfortable with the recommendation I made, consistent with the other recommendations that I took.
So and your recommendation again is to
Fine
find
violation, was fine of $50.
All right, any other questions? Is there a motion to be made?
I will add, though, if the commission wants to do something else other than that, that's fine. That's why I'm the recommender and the commission is the decider. I have no problem with that.
Well, as we have moved out of the Zoom era, we have somebody who's traveled from Toledo who come before us, when we're talking about a $3 discrepancy. I would move that we find a violation, but for good cause, not impose a fine or refer this for further prosecution.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor that would find a violation of the good cause, either impose a fine or refer to prosecution. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Cunningham. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries by a vote of 6-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Hughes, Mr. Ricker, thank you very much for taking the accommodating.
Not a problem.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Conklin.
Morning.
Let the record.
I apologize.
Sir, is there a case that you appear, you're coming here to address?
Not to address, just to observe.
Oh, okay.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Phil, do you have anything else?
No, I think anything out of order. And you, ma'am?
Jackie.
Oh, okay. Hi, Jess. Good to see you. Okay, no, I just want to make sure you guys, everybody else taken care of, in terms of cases before the hearing. Now we can go to the basic agenda.
Okay, under group considerations, okay. First case is 2021 R-321. Executive Director recommends that it be withdrawn by the Board of Elections. Do you need a motion for that?
Technically, that's not a recommendation, that's just a statement, and all we need to do is acknowledge it. That matter has been withdrawn by the Board of Elections.
All right, it's so acknowledged.
Yep.
Under the new violation category, we have case 2021 R-302, 2021 R-310. Executive Director recommends finding no violation. Do we have a motion on that?
Yes.
Motion.
So,
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
for the record, I think we should reflect that Ms. Kaufman has joined the meeting at this point.
I think we already did that.
We did.
That's all right.
It's all right. It's go.
Welcome.
Are you?
I was gonna say, I'd like for the record to indicate that I'm present at the meeting now. Are you one of those?
I'm physically present.
And the record to reflect, I apologize for.
A lot of reflections in the record
We
this morning.
carried on.
Okay, mackerel.
Okay,
Never mind.
that's,
You started that. I did, no.
all right, the next case is case 2021R-311. Executive Director recommends dismissing the matter and declaring the committee terminated pursuant to advisory opinion 97 ELC-04 as the candidate treasurer for the committee is deceased. Mr. Richter.
We got, the board referred this matter to us because there were outstanding campaign finance reports. But they also reflected that unfortunately Mr. Spidell has passed away. He was the candidate treasurer for his committee. And so based on that advisory opinion that was issued back in 97, we give ourselves the ability to terminate a committee when you have a situation like this where essentially all the responsible parties are deceased. And so that is what I recommend that we do.
Questions of Mr. Richard? I'll entertain a motion.
Also,
I have a motion by Charlie. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. To follow the recommendation of the executive director, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under the good cause category, case 2021R-277, 2021R-281, 2021R-287, 2021R-288, 2021R-289, 2021R-296, 2021R-306, 2021R-320, 2021R-328. And the recommendation of the executive director is to find a violation of the good cause, not impose a fine or refer to prosecution. Mr. Ricker.
These are matters where the report was filed, and after reviewing the nature of the response that was submitted, I felt these merited good cause. I'm going to go ahead and bring in something now, Dennis, so we can, if you want to address what you were talking about before.
No, I just noticed when I reviewed the ICWs that in the good cause category and the $50 fine category, there's cases that are similar. And in one case, it was good cause, the next case, it was $50 fine. And it was puzzling to me why in some cases where they were, for instance, a case we had no priors and the filing would be 3 or 4 days late and they would get a $50 fine. But in another case with similar facts, it would be good cause. So there were a number of them that I noticed, and prior to the hearing, I had raised this with our executive director, and that's why he brought it up now.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, I'm still kind of feeling my way, as I indicated this now, I'm kind of feeling my way through our change that we discussed about a year ago that kind of said, let's be a little bit tighter reined on when to good cause, when to impose fines. And I'll admit to, like I said, kind of feeling my way through that. But what it is primarily, the difference would be what the nature of the explanation given, along with how late in the process, or how late the responses were. And so if somebody, if the nature of the response is essentially, I overlooked it, I missed it, I'm sorry, as opposed to, I overlooked it, I missed it because I was taking care of my mother who had, needed the extra care, or even if somebody just kind of said, I had it done, I mailed it, and it didn't get there on time, that I think you got a little bit different, than say somebody, I mailed it 2 weeks in advance. Instead of just a couple of days in advance. So those are the kind of things that I'm taking into consideration and trying to differentiate. And I'm far from perfect, but that's why you would see those kind of differences about what you're speaking. I just, I appreciate you bringing it up. I have no problem with it. And that's why you see the difference between the two. And again, I always say, I'm making recommendations. If you guys want to make a different finding, I don't ever have any problem with that. If I do on any particular case, I will talk about why I feel strongly about my recommendation. Other than that, they're just recommendations, and you guys can go however you want, in terms of making those kind of decisions, on matters that are pending before us. So I'm glad to bring it up though and discuss it, and at least have it, so that everybody understands where I'm coming from. I can, I continue to get an understanding of where you guys, want me to come from. So I appreciate your.
Yeah, and I appreciate your response to it. Sam. Thank you.
Mr. Brown, is there any cases of a good cause that you'd like to pull out?
I think the cases that raised a flag with me were the one case.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
With the $50 fine.
Yeah, I'm not.
As far as the good cause cases, I'm not concerned about that.
Right. All right. Very good. All right. Any other questions of the executive director? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion, follow the recommendation of the executive director. We have a second.
Second.
All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to the $50 fine category, following cases. Case number 2021-R-275, 2021-R-276, 2021-R-278, 2021-R-279, 2021-R-280, 2021-R-282, 2021-R-283, 2021-R-291, 2021-R-292, 2021-R-293, 2021-R-294, 2021-R-297, 2021-R-298, 2021-R-300, 2021-R-301, 2021-R-303, 2021-R-305, 2021-R-309, 2021-R-313, 2021-R-315, 2021-R-318. All these cases are in the $50 fine category. Commissioner Bowman, are there any cases that I read there that you'd like to pull out we can discuss?
Yes, 3 of them. 2021-R-278. According to the ICW, the report.
Commissioner, if we could do that, I apologize for cutting you off. If you could identify the three, we'll pull those three out, then we'll vote on the rest, and then we'll address each of the others.
Okay, so it's 2021-R-278, 2021-R-279, and 2021-R-283.
Thank you very much. Okay, with those exceptions, recommendation of the executive director that we find a violation and impose a fine of $50. Mr. Ricker?
Yeah, that's fine by me.
Did you say that's fine by me?
Fine by me. Any questions from Mr. Ricker on any of those cases, with the exception of the three that pulled out? If not, I'll entertain a motion to follow the recommendation of the executive director.
With the exclusion of 2021-R-278, 279, and 283, I move that we follow the executive director's recommendation.
Thank you very much.
Second.
We have second. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now, with respect to the three cases that Commissioner Blomer has identified. First of all, Dennis, 2021-R-278.
Yeah, according to the ICW, the report was filed 4 days late. There was one old prior back in 2014, and it was a $50 fine category.
Correct. And again, just had, more or less the notice from the board was received, but not initially acted upon. Once they were apprised, they had the report, and so there was nothing to me there that I felt was sufficient to go beyond kind of where we're moving, I guess I would say, in terms of, where to potentially impose a relatively minor fine of $50 under that set of circumstances. So that's why I did that one that way.
As you're describing, it sounds like there was no justification for the delay. That's why you recommend opposing the fine.
Right.
But I'm sorry, Dennis, to repeat, Mr. Bowmer, the prior violation was 2014.
Correct.
So your thought was it's more than 5 years.
Yes.
Typically, we wouldn't have considered it just.
Correct.
The class.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I think what we're doing in the new area is, unless there's actually a justification, we're saying instead of just doing good cause, if they really don't have a reason for it, we're imposing a $50 fine. And so we're kind of looking at going, If you've got a reason and there's justification, then we'll do good cause. If not, then we're imposing a fine because you have to follow the rules.
Yeah, and is that imposed? I thought one of the considerations on no fine was how late it was.
That's also, yeah, I also have to take that into consideration, yes. And then looking at the other ones that Mr., I guess to a degree, I'm getting ahead here, I don't know that I want to. They were only filed on February 1 or February 2. You know, and so, not that I was wanting to go to any greater fine, but that's certainly something else that I do take into consideration is, you know, are they 1 or 2 days late, or are they much more than that, as well. And these were ones that, you know, even from my perspective, you're trying to go back and forth on whether you should good cause or $50 fine in the cases, because they're only, you know, essentially 1 or 2 business days late. But, you know, again, and I don't have the files up here with me, but I could go back down and get the file and, you know, give you the full, I mean, what you're seeing is a synopsis that I'm reading from their response. But again, says, you know, failure to file error. The notice from the board was received, but not initially acted upon. And so they ended up, you know, that one is 2 days late, 2 business days late. It was like Friday and it was filed the following Tuesday. You know, got the notice, you should have made it. And so under that, this kind of set of circumstances, that's why I'm coming up with $50 fine. But again, I'm not going to sit here and say, you have to do that.
Right.
That, you know, no, I respect greatly what you're saying. And it's, you know, when you're only a day or 2 late, it does, you know, it makes it a lot harder. I don't know if I want to say harder, but it's a little bit different to make a recommendation for a fine when it's that late as opposed from even something that was filed on February 21st or March 1st or something like that.
These, and I shouldn't say these, the first one we're talking about, which is 270.
Correct.
Does this appear to be a delay because of the mail as opposed to we got notification and then?
I don't recall that they actually said further, you know, when they mailed it or anything else like that. Sometimes they'll lay that out, and I've been kind of glancing ahead at the other 2 that we'll deal with here to see what they talk about when it was mailed and so forth. This, if I didn't include it here, the likelihood is they didn't mention it in their response.
Because I suspect during the time frame when they were doing this in mail, the mail was going incredibly slowly.
It was, and also there were still COVID restrictions in place then as well, which is again something else that I try to take that into consideration also. You know, for somebody who couldn't get to the board office or you know, didn't go, etc. So. Like I said, if you guys are questioning me on these and giving me more input on what your perception is, it helps me understand how to do this all in the future. Because for the longest time, it was relatively easy. If you were a person, we've had that conversation before. If you were a first timer and you filed a report, you filed a response, it was good cause. And so, you know, we talked about, you guys want me to move away from that. And so, like I said, I'm still learning 25 years later.
Commissioner Brummer, what are your thoughts on?
Well, look, my main concern is consistency. I think we have to be consistent in how we apply penalties. And when I looked at the first group of good cause cases, there were many of those cases where there were 3-day lates, no priors, good cause. And then when you get into the $50 fine category, the first case, 278 that I said, 4 days late, an old prior, a $50 fine. The next case, 279, which is 4 days late, no priors, a $50 fine. And then the last case I mentioned, 283. I can see at 283, that report was 3 days late, no priors, and a $50 fine. And so when you look at that in conjunction with the good cause, you start to think, okay, well, how is this consistent?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
You have a motion, Mr. Brummer?
I would say in those 3 cases, we find a violation and for good cause not imposed penalty.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion that's been duly seconded with respect to case 2021 R-278, 2021 R-279, in 2021 R-283. To find a violation of the good cause not imposed a fine or refer for prosecution. Further discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries by vote 7-0. Thank you for. Thank you. Helpful all of us. All right, the next case is an interesting case. It's the $82.53. Case 2021 R-211, Pack of Shaker Heights Teachers Association et al. Go ahead, Phil.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at the ICW, you can see the variety of cases that we've had involving them, and they pay their fines every time. They're back before us again, more than 2 or 3 days late, I might add. But,
I say nothing.
when the guy submitted his response, I mean, I appreciate, he said he's a teacher, he's got other responsibilities and doing this, and you kind of feel for him. But you can see what's written in there, and looking at the campaign finance report, and I looked at what was listed in the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections database for this group as well, and it confirmed that there was only $82.53 left in the account, and so he kind of inferred that they want to terminate this thing. So I thought that would give them an opportunity to get to a zero balance, and we could terminate the committee.
Questions of Mr. Richter?
I move that we follow the executive director's recommendation.
The motion, do we have a second? We have a motion that's been duly seconded that would following the recommendation of the executive director and impose a fine of $82.53. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. Thank you for that explanation, sir.
Not a problem. Glad to do it. Let's hope, at another level, I hope this actually helps them to go ahead and terminate this committee, so we don't have to hear any more from them. Yes, exactly.
In the $100 fine category, case 2021 R-286, 2021 R-299. Again, the executive director has recommended finding a violation and imposing a fine of $100.
Let me double check and look at the ICWs on here before I make a statement with regard to any specific element of it. I had a feeling both of these were ones where the report was filed, but no response was submitted to the commission. Without a response, I can't indicate to you whether there was either good cause. Oh, this one did have $100 fine. And it was just
286 and 299.
I don't know why I went to $100 on that one. You should have complained about this one too.
We haven't asked him for all.
Or watchdog. I mean, 286.
It's not 286 complaint.
Can we look at it as diligence?
No, and like I said,
We appreciate it.
I appreciate that. I'm gonna say, let's deal with just 286 at this point. All right, because that was one where the report was filed, but no response was submitted. So without a response, I can't make any kind of recommendation, either good cause or a lesser fine amount. And so now I kind of adopted a $100 fine as the amount to be imposed in those types of cases.
All right, so with respect to case 2021 R-286, any further questions of Mr. Richter? If not, I'll entertain a motion on 286.
Move that we follow the executive director's recommendation, plus $500. Find a violation, plus $500.
Thank you, Commissioner. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion to follow the recommendation of the executive director, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. Now, back to.
Yeah.
2021
299, as I look at the Friends of Williamsburg Police Department, it says, submitted a response and the reports were filed. It was about 6 months late. There were multiple reports that were outstanding and failed to file before they were all submitted in July. That's why all of a sudden I'm losing it as to why I would have gone $100 on this one. I'm going to change my recommendation on that and say recommend finding a violation, opposed to fine of $50.
There was no prior.
No, that's what I was expecting to find a prior, and there's no priors. There were multiple reports outstanding, 2018 post general, 2019 annual, then the 2020 annual was late but filed. But I don't know, normally that's, I would say $50 for that. So I'm gonna change that recommendation and put $50.
And all, I'm sorry, they've all been filed now.
Yes.
I move that we follow the executive director's recommendation.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion to duly seconded, go ahead and find violation and impose a fine of $50 with respect to case 2021R-299. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. All right, moving on to the next category of cases or case. Consolidate case numbers 2020R-486 and 2021R-324. Find a violation, impose a fine of $100. That's case number 2021R-324. Mr. Ricker?
Yeah, this referral was for, initially failing to file the 2021 semi due July 31, eventually filed November or September 24. When that was filed, they also filed the 2020 post general. And you can see if you look at the ICW, the treasurer, the needs file reports. Said no reminder notices were received. They didn't realize that the reports were due to be filed. The annual report is, post general report is something you got to submit. But this, the treasurer and the county, they both submitted responses that said they're now up to date, all things have been filed. Because there was an outstanding prior to 2021 R-486, I'm recommending that we consolidate those cases, find a violation and impose a fine of $100.
Further questions to Mr. Richter? If not, I'm going to take a motion.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, you have a motion to duly seconded, follow the recommendation of the executive director to consolidate case numbers 2020R-486 and 2021R-324. Find a violation, impose a fine of $100. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried by vote of 7-0. Moving on to the next category, $150 fine, case number 2021R-319.
This case where there was the report was filed. A response was submitted. The treasurer had a change of address, but they received a reminder notice once they were made aware. The report was submitted. They filed 2021 semi. It was the 2020 case in which we imposed fine violation, imposed a $100 fine. Back again, with a $100 fine, I'm recommending a $150 fine in this particular set of circumstances.
Questions of Mr. Richter?
Move that we follow the executive director's recommendation.
We have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion that's been duly seconded. Follow the recommendation of the executive director, which would be fine violation and impose a fine of $150. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next category of case, $200 fine, case 2021R-285, 2021R-325. Mr. Richter.
I'm looking at 325 right now. I'll look at 285 here in a second. The report was filed on October 1 due July 30. It said there was no reminder notice. Or the reminder notice was sent to his old address. Well, they didn't provide an update to the designation of treasurer reflecting that the treasurer had moved. But they said as soon as the notice was received from the commission, they filed a report. Plus the last case before the commission was 2019-05-28, in which we found a violation and imposed a $100 fine. So I'm back as it relates to, again, the 2021R-325. Recommending the imposition of a $200 fine. Now we're back again. Let me double check. Fine. In that particular case, the report was filed. It was filed on February 23rd. No response was submitted. The last case of the commission was a 2016 case in which we found a violation and imposed a $100 fine. That's the last one we've had since then. But if you look at the ICW, you'll see that there is a bit of a checkered history for this particular candidate dating back into the 90s. And so with the last case being a $100 fine, I'm recommending a $200 fine in this particular case.
Questions of Mr. Richter on either 285 or 325? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we follow the executive director's recommendation.
We have a second. We have a motion to duly second that we follow the recommendation of the executive director and impose a fine of $200. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next category of cases, finding a violation and imposing a fine of $25 a day with reconsideration option. Those two cases are 2021R-304, 2021R-329. Mr. Richter.
These are cases where the respective campaigns were referred for failing to file reports. Those reports have not been filed. Chris actually on my behalf checked with the boards over the last couple of days. The reports have still not yet been filed, so therefore I think the imposition of a daily fine to hopefully influence them to file their reports is the appropriate action for the commission to take.
Questions of Mr. Richter? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Now, we have a motion that duly seconded, follow the recommendation of the executive director, find violation and impose a fine of $25 a day with reconsideration option. All in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-3. Next category of case, 2021R-316, the executive director recommends finding violation, imposing a fine of $25 a day with reconsideration option with payment of $300. Mr. Richter.
There's a variety of cases, or not, there's one prior in which we propose a $150 fine, which has not yet been paid. That leads to the $300 payment explanation here as a tag on to the $25 per day. The committee was referred for failing to file the 2018 semi, the 2018 annual, 2019 semi, the 2019 annual, the 2020 semi, and the 2020 annual report. So I haven't filed a report in 4 years. And so my recommendation is to find a violation and impose a fine of $25 per day. Give them the ability to have the matter reconsidered if they pay $300.
Questions of Mr. Richter? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Please go ahead and follow the recommendation of the executive director, find a violation, impose a fine of $25 a day with reconsideration. $300. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Final case 2021R-326 to the category of $88 plus $25 a day with reconsideration.
This appears to be the fourth matter involving this committee, which they've been referred to the commission. This is for the 2021 annual. They've also been referred for 2021 semi-annual. 2020 annual, the 2020 semi-annual. Commission has made previous findings imposing per diem fines as we continue to increase the amount to be imposed against somebody who is not properly filing their reports. That's where we are in this case. That $8,800 reflects the 88 days from the July 31 due date for the report up until today, and then $25 per day on into the future.
Questions of Mr. Richter?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? All right, the motion's been duly seconded to follow the recommendation of the executive director, which would be to find a violation and impose a fine of $8,800 plus $25 per day with reconsideration option. Motion signified by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5-7-0. And finally, last page, continued upon request of the respondent, case number 2021R-322. That case will be continued upon request of the respondent. Following cases will be continued for service: 2021R-290, 2021R-295, 2021R-307, 2021R-308, 2021R-312, 2021R-314, 2021R-317, 2021R-323, 2021R-327. Those cases again have been continued for service. All right, and before, I guess the next matter is the hearing, as we've done in the past, case number 2021G-019 versus Freeman et al. I recuse myself, and I will We'll hit the term gavel over to the vice chair. Go ahead, proceed.
Mr. Kreitz, before you depart, can I make a motion before the commission? Under Roman numeral number 5, I have a review of the executive director. I know we're going to be in a hearing, I don't know how long today, but it seems to me that we move that to our next hearing and then excuse Mr. Kreitz so he doesn't have to sit in the hallway all day waiting for this hearing to be completed.
You are a scholar.
Yeah, already taken care of. Thank you.
Yeah, and I thought that that's what we decided.
I couldn't
Yeah,
remember, I
yeah.
thought Chris would put it on here, just in case.
Jet lag.
Although, you know, I offered him the opportunity to sit down at one of the desks in the office. Work down there.
Hunting is done.
That does.
I'm gonna do what I did just in law school, and that's, pass.
Really comfortable down there.
But the Wi-Fi stinks.
Yes, it does.
Thank you very much. If there's no objection, then I will go ahead and do that.
Yep.
I have my cell phone available by telephone in the event that you finish in a timely fashion and you desire to go ahead.
Be in November, Mike.
Your next month.
Thank you all. All right, before we start with the hearing, we're gonna have a 10-minute recess to allow the party to set up. And the commissioner to take a vote as well.
It's been a long morning.
How's
We
it?
will attempt to convene at 10:15. 10:15.
The November meeting.
Since I recused myself on this case, I still, it's not.
We're at
Now, during our.
I thought I was trying to get
Question.
early.
What's that?
Last meeting, we had.
Yeah, I got one down to 8. That's one thing I forgot this morning.
I'll wait outside.
And so I got.
Once you run that, get him, you can
I'm
catch
sorry.
him before he leaves.
I feel so bad.
Actually, you're down there.
Okay, the last meeting, we moved the lectern here, moved the chair where everyone can see. Do you want me to do that again? Move that lectern over here.
Mr. Mr. Brent,
Yeah, probably, I'll do that. You go ahead and give him this.
you want the lectern over here again?
Yes.
Great, and we'll still have the witness here.
Yeah.
Do you want your camera over here, or do you want to move it around? Your camera.
No, I think it's back.
Clear? Okay, all right.
Okay.
And take a 15-minute recess if you heard.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, I will. Thank you
Okay.
I'm just thinking about that on my way in.
Mr. Hicks, you asked for, and it dawned on me, with a lot of complaints coming from grandmothers, Warren.
Yeah, there's like.
All right.
I would put it mildly, but like, there's a nut job factor that think they can just produce the affidavits and send them in, and that's gonna solve it.
Officially, my answer was correct. We don't have any of those. We
Okay.
don't have any of those complaints here on record.
Okay.
But I was thinking about it more last night, and it dawned on me. We did receive a whole slew of complaints like that.
Like the one letter ones?
Yes, from a variety of different people. I'm sorry.
Here it is. This was the template they were circulating.
I rejected them all.
You can have it. That's the problem. It's crazy because
I rejected them all because
There's a witness, so.
they
Well, it
had-
starts on, their template starts with, I learned about this from reading an article in the newspaper.
Yeah. But they were, I'm looking for the amount that they said. Maybe they,
Well,
maybe.
you can keep that or throw it away. That's, I just brought that because that's the original,
No, you're wrong.
that's the original
I
template
got,
that they.
we
were
did get a
circulating.
lot of complaints from folks.
Yeah.
But like they were saying, okay, there was an improper contribution of like $530,000.
Yeah, the Michael Wine.
He's now working at Lawrence.
It was,
The amount for that kind of contribution was adjusted, it's normally adjusted every 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's like $530,000.
Big Sur.
And so, you know, I sent them all back and said, what you're alleging.
Big deal.
Right.
Lawrence. We got out and all the gates were shut.
well,
Drop it
For my office.
my county and around there.
Well, my
Like they
daughter
can
woke
make
up
up
and
the
yeah.
and then have.
Oh, you want to go to
There were about
So only people who are there in the live production. Out there.
Yes, yeah, I had. If you watch it, actually, it's Saturday. I don't know, and I said.
People that said they were.
Whereas normally it's not a bustling Thursday,
Offices.
World legal event.
That people can rip out of.
I stayed on the other side.
But I.
Constitution, yeah.
Because you heard that.
Yeah, they get in there, that they, you know, I talked to Laura. These people never actually talked to Laura Rosenberger. You can't put it in emphasis as one statement, unless I only have perjury, and she's never talked to anyone.
Right, you're not supposed to. In a minute, you're, I think I know all of those.
Okay.
Yeah,
And now we have like,
Okay, that'd be great. Get copies of
Hotline.
it. Yeah.
you know, lawyer pro line for Columbus now, lawyer pro line for Akron. And then we're going to be the front desk receptionist for the Cincinnati Bar Association. Just because, you know, that it works really well. There's just so many people that have all the staffing that people are trying, you know, different things.
So the phone calls come into your office.
Yeah, we have a call center system.
They call their number at Florida, so they pick it up and.
So we know that's who it is, and our instructions are on there, and, you know,
Uh-huh.
everything like that. And we have it set up that people can do it, you know, I got people do it from home as well, but it just works better if they're in the office doing it. They
Yeah.
can see each other,
Yeah,
communicate, do updates.
Yeah.
That's the issue, they would all like to be at home, but the other part of it is can require that some people be there and do that. You can't sort folks' mail
right.
if somebody's not there. And we have, you know, and we have like probably 200 businesses that get their mail. So,
At your office? Wow. They like downtown people and they just cruise by and pick it up. Or how's it work?
some people are out of town. Some people are out of town people that, you know, want a Columbus address.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, people that are working out of their home or they don't.
Yeah,
want to come
right.
Or whatever,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
No.
I mean, 8 years ago when I started it, you know, after the first like year and a half, I said, oh my God, this is a mistake, nobody's taking it. But then it just, you know, built on time or whatever, and it's a
Yeah.
reoccurring revenue thing, it's getting my credit card every month, but it worked well. It's a little business subscription thing.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. And I just took.
So what made you think of it?
Well, I didn't invent it, I mean,
What's your, what made you think that was a
I
hit?
just, you know, because I just wanted to, you know, I like working with small businesses. I also have business coaching, I do business coaching. And, you know, and then, you know, you go to your natural affinities with your, for me, you know, you do a lot of legal, do a lot of nonprofit. And so that's probably like, that's 50% of my base of
Yeah.
clients, but it's the type of business where you gotta have like 200 something, you know, clients, and then COVID, you know, we didn't have a lot of attrition, and then we also had some special stuff, so we got, we're in assistance, health lines and stuff like that, that really spiked it up, so.
Yeah.
We're doing pretty well right now.
Good. Thank you, Rhonda.
You're welcome.
I haven't had my raisins in a long time. I don't like them in anything. That's plain.
Just by themselves, yeah. I know.
And I never think to buy them.
No, my husband buys them all the time, so. We have them. I thought it was gonna rain.
I think it's supposed to, I saw
Not
the weather
today.
forecast.
Not
Are
today.
you sure?
Yeah.
They said they said rain by 8, the chance increases every hour, at least that's what Fox said.
Cloudy.
So, is it gonna rain today?
Chance of rain moving into the evening.
Yeah, that's what they were saying on the news this morning.
And tomorrow's supposed to be shitty.
Yeah, 88% chance of rain, so it's gonna rain all
And
day.
it's Saturday, you know, like,
Saturday too. That's sticking.
I get to go
Yeah,
to
Saturday,
Detroit.
40%.
when you were hiking this weekend.
So it's gonna be raining. and I'm in Detroit.
Mike knows that my
Oh,
husband. and I
fun.
And we sometimes, typically we go on a long hike adventure every year. So this year we went to Glacier.
Amazing.
Eight.
I just down in Kentucky, where it's out of the cabin. It's a problem. All
Then
did work.
we're sort of getting ready to go.
They totally got the time cleaning and getting all the furniture moving.
Like rock stars. We're not.
4 hours one way to work all day.
Yeah, we are okay, but these are people who are marathoners and triathletes and like big time.
But it's done.
Old, they're old. They're still. that
No, I
mindset,
get it,
You know, so we train out then when we're training to hike, we're usually we're working to about 18 miles before we go, because it's hard to imitate elevation. Are you a hiker?
Like that. We do the same thing. In fact, we just came back from California. So, Scott,
I was gonna turn this on, so I don't
Yeah.
forget, so you
Okay, so
don't.
let's- maybe we don't. Yeah, we are real
I
thick.
just wanna let you know.
Appreciate not being taped.
I just wanna turn it on so I don't forget it later, but I didn't want your conversation to go on.
Yeah, yeah.
We went out to.
Morning, Mr. Chairman.
Morning, how you doing?
Oh, well, how are you?
good.
Arson. And, we like trades.
Oh, nice.
And,
Really.
the one trail is
So what happened?
10 miles. It was pretty large.
I know there's a story.
No, not really. We were just chatting about it. That's like.
well, do what?
Yeah.
I thought it was next, it was November that we decided on.
No sales, no.
And so like,
Yeah.
I looked through everything
Hotel to hotel.
and.
Any movie you want.
No, I wasn't actually, I put on flats today, which I never do, I always wear heels, I'm like,
One day, I think. the
Weird.
longest-
then I did stop getting coffee. And then as I was running across the street when the light was green, then I was like, this is why I put on flats, God knew what was gonna happen, and so therefore.
Yeah, I mean, the whole.
Doable in Ohio.
Well, I'm glad we went.
Well, no, I will, right, that's just how you feel, I'm like, being late makes me nervous. So then I was like,
I was always 15 minutes early.
Because they're always there.
Coach has always said, if you're not early, you're
You're
late.
like,
You better be ready when practice starts, you're ready.
well, and that's what, I'm glad I'm always here like half an hour early though, I'm always here, like,
And I was stressed as I walked in right at 9.
That's not.
yeah, that's what Phil said, that, it was just him, Dennis and Mike, he's like, wouldn't it be funny if everyone forgot, I'm like, no, why not?
It was funny because I looked at the agenda and it had 9 o'clock and I was thinking, I was gonna tell Chris that I was driving. Chris, maybe send an email, just remind everybody that we're starting at 9, not 10. I'm like, no, people will read it.
They put it on that public notice email that they sent around, but they put a highlight.
It was a commitment.
Well, I mean, it was in my head that we were doing it next
Watching
time,
the old
so.
movies where they set up the tent, and reading on China. And
No,
then they take up everything and type it, you know, it wasn't, but it was not.
Did Chris put down the
We're doing that, and it was
Is that what you're doing?
horses and fox or whatever that,
I
whatever.
thought your notes were very nebulous.
All this stuff.
But like, we're not, about our hearing.
Yeah, no.
And the meeting, and there was two questions that we were.
Yeah.
That's the.
Oh, nice.
Went to Vermont and stayed a couple of days there and actually hiked up.
So this is our little secret.
Wow.
My husband, nobody can.
Okay.
We did it.
Yeah, that's
We did it. It was.
Inside. On the- No, I loved it, but my husband was like, it was just. Thank you. For me, I just joined, but for him, it
It
was.
was so different.
Down.
Closing down the cabin.
Like, where?
I know, but all you about this time, I went away, you know, still go down there.
They're all. We hiked down for.
Yeah,
It was fun.
yeah.
Oh, you got it all done? Well, we got that.
You know, because we got all of our gear and we had a great time, but I can remember it.
That's all it was.
Yeah. Thinking.
I think that place was like 18 nights. We're talking about. When are you gonna build up over it after that's the second floor? Yeah.
Most of our friends down to it.
Yeah, the ours.
Find anybody.
Yeah, we find something.
A little more privacy.
Real. I mean, off and on, we've gone with, I think we used it very, anything about it. When we just did last year, there were. Eight of us. Well, four of them were my family, my husband and I, my two kids.
And they're exploring, so they're both Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You see the black there.
And it's brown. We saw brown and it was. Well, no, we had a couple, they were a couple trails that couldn't go on because of the bears, because of the bears, because the season when we were there was there. Maybe standing on the side, I'm not sure what it was. So they had a couple of trails closed that we wanted to go on that we couldn't because of bears. But no, we just started doing it about 5 years ago. Which lodge?
What's the lake there?
Lake McDonald?
Big lodge there, and you can take a.
We went to 3 lodges and they were all mine.
Then you can take a road across.
Oh, yeah.
And then pick up into the orchard.
Yeah, I think that is, no, that's the one that's, actually, Dennis stayed there. It's the Penny Glacier that we're talking about. We can go across the lake. That's the Penny Glacier. We had an iceberg, we hiked an iceberg, lake. We hiked a couple of lakes and glaciers up there. It's gorgeous.
And those connections.
Okay.
Yes. Scott, you still along for
I am.
objections and everything?
Yes.
Okay, we'll proceed, back to the hearing.
I presume we already have a separation of witnesses. Okay.
And as we did last time, Commissioner Norman, and there will be objections. Okay, we are still in this presentation. Are you ready to proceed?
I call Dave Ward.
I got it. True.
Yeah.
Do I need to get one?
No.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, he is a party, so yeah, swear in with Mr. Hicks, because he's a party, and unlike Mr. Bride, who's acting as counsel for the respondent, Mr. Hicks is acting as his own counsel, so he should be sworn and then swear.
I don't think that Mr. Hicks he's swearing unless he's a witness. Right now, he's acting as an advocate on his own behalf as pro se.
But he was sworn, but he was sworn in before he did an opening statement. And so I know what you're saying. I don't disagree with you, but it's just, I feel like at this point, it's better to go ahead and do that and get it on the record before something happens later on. And we happen to forget, and that way it's all taken care of here. So anyway,
Brett, you want to stand for us, please?
I do. Welcome, Mr. Ward. I appreciate, I apologize for you having to be here all day yet last time, and hopefully this will be quick this time. Can you just describe, who you are, what your role is, what your current job is?
Sure. My name is Dave Ward. I am the Director of Constituent Affairs for the Ohio Secretary's Office. So I work with other divisions of our office to ensure consistent responses across the divisions. I respond to constituents directly via email, via snail mail, answer phones through proclamations, and other duties as assigned.
Okay. And how long have you worked for the Secretary of State?
About 2 years.
What did you do before that?
Worked for the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation.
Okay. And how do you know Alan Freeman? If you know Alan Freeman, how do you know Alan Freeman?
I was an intern on Gene Schmidt in the congressional office in 2006, and he was the campaign manager for the Schmidt campaign. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And how do you know Stephen Caraway?
I
If you
do.
know that.
Sure, I do. So he and I worked in Congressman Schmidt's office. I don't know when he started, but I began in 2008, and he was already involved in, campaign and whatnot. So at some point he was hired on for working on staff, and so he and I worked together in that sense.
Okay. And if you know him, how do you know Nick Owens?
Went to school with him. I in kindergarten was the first time I met him, so I know him.
you've heard of him?
Yes.
So, and I know Nick Owens worked for Gene Schmidt as well, but was that a disambiguous time to when you worked for Gene Schmidt, or did you overlap at all?
I was his intern, so he and I don't think I worked with him when I was in official office. If I did, it was a very short time, but I interned under Nick Owens. So.
Okay, so you knew Alan Freeman and Stephen Caraway from Gene Schmidt's campaign. You knew Nick Owens from childhood, but also you had a relationship with him in Gene Schmidt's campaign. Okay. I've handed you exhibit 19, so for the commissioners, exhibit 19. So are you familiar, other than the cover page, the cover page on there, are you familiar with that document?
I am not.
You are not?
No.
Then would it confuse you that you were included on records requests and responses that provided this document to me?
So if I responded to constituents' work requests, I get my responses from other divisions of our office. So our campaign finance division would draft the email that I would then send out on behalf of our office.
Okay, so, and then my follow-up emails about this document, you don't recall any of those?
No, I don't know the documents. I share them with others. So if you send me something, I would forward it.
Okay, I want to remind you that you're under oath.
Yeah.
Okay, did you
I
provide,
would object, there's been no suggestion that the witness has been dishonest, and that reminder.
there's about to be. Did you provide an
Just
anonymous tip?
Mr. Hicks, if you would, let him finish answering this question before you step on his feet, okay?
I think it was done, but did you provide an anonymous tip to anybody relating to the existence of this document or this document being filed?
No,
No, you didn't.
I don't recall, no.
Okay. This document has a paragraph in it. Okay, so you see the first, second, third, fourth paragraph of the document
What page?
on the very first page.
Okay.
So since you're not familiar with this document and according to your testimony, the paragraph here This document I'll represent, it's already been an exhibit, it's a filing that was made on April 15, 2021 into the Secretary of State's office from Alan Freeman or his campaign. So it was provided to me in a records request where you were copied on it, and then you were copied on a lot of follow-ups.
Okay.
And, but apparently never looked at the document or the attachments or the emails thoroughly.
I would object. This is not a question. This is testimony. If Mr. Hicks wishes to testify, he needs to take the stand.
Staying, you need to ask questions, Mr. Hicks.
So that paragraph, the second sentence, could you read that, where it says, well, the campaign committee
Of what paragraph?
of the fourth paragraph?
I should read the whole paragraph?
All right, you can start with the second sentence if you like, but if you want to read the whole one.
Well, while the campaign committee once received a highly questionable email from Constant Content asking us to pay them over $250,000 without any description of why or what for, we were later informed that the email was not a campaign committee payable and that we should disregard it, which we did.
Okay. And your work is a constituent affair, you said constituent affairs?
Director, yeah.
Do you get involved with campaign finance reporting?
Nope.
Not at all?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So you have no knowledge of what your office does in the matter when a campaign finance report is filed or?
I do not.
Okay, and your constituent affairs role includes no interaction with candidates about their finance reports?
If I refer them to, I will refer them to the division. Yeah, if they call, I will say, hey, call our campaign finance division. But I will forward emails to our campaign finance division for whatever deal response.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna get one of those maybe with you. I'm gonna take a look at Exhibit 7. While you might not be familiar with the specific documents in this packet, are you familiar with the format and so forth of these documents?
No, it's familiar actually through the business filings of our office. It looks like the format that we use.
Okay, so do you get involved with things involving business filings in your role with constituent services?
Only if you refer people to the business division.
Okay, so what do you actually get involved in other than referring people to other people?
I mean, that's my main job. I will handle escalated constituents, so if someone calls and has concern about the secretary's position or statements, I will respond to those, but, you know, we have a number of different divisions in our office, and so I act as the middleman, and so they will oftentimes, you know, bill all the constituents to me, so if someone's angry, upset, persistent, they will have me kind of be the main front of that, kind of catch errors, if you will, and say, hey, you know, send it all to me, and then have me respond to them with whatever responses our business division provides, or in finance or elections, so I'll be the middleman here.
In your role as constituent, am I saying it right, constituent services or
Constituent affairs, right?
Constituent affairs, okay. In your role as constituent affairs, do you receive training in the Secretary of State's office as the campaign finance? Do you receive training as into business formation and filing?
Yeah.
You should receive, what training do you receive?
With regard to other parts of our office, not.
So you do constituent affairs, but have no training in the things that the office is responsible for?
Correct. I don't need to. I will refer things to those divisions, and they will tell me.
If you have no training, how do you know what division to refer to?
Well, the business oriented question.
And once again, he stepped on the answer of the witness.
Again, if it is a business oriented question, I will forward that question to the business division. They also respond to constituents, so I'm not the only person that responds to constituents, right? They have entire divisions of folks who, you know, answer questions, respond to constituents. So, you know, I will maintain the email inbox, and so if a email comes in with campaign finance related questions or business questions or elections questions, I will typically forward that to those divisions, and they will respond unless they say, hey, why don't you respond on our behalf, and here's the response that we
Okay.
provide you.
Do you know Kenny Henning?
Hey.
And what's the difference between his role and Secretary of State's office and your role?
So he's a regional liaison, so he goes around his district and, you know, talks to boards of elections and businesses about what we do as an office.
Okay. in your representations here that you don't receive any training, either campaign finance or in business formation rules or anything else. You just catch input and then distribute it to the appropriate persons in the office. You receive training as to how to route things in the office?
I mean, other than a quick like, hey, this business, here's the email to send it to. It's not rocket science.
So, at risk of Mr. Fry's objection, why not just give the citizens those emails then? If the only rule you provide is to forward things to another email.
I would object. He's presuming that he doesn't give citizens emails when there's a public record request. No foundation for the question.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Warner, you know.
If I understand the question, you're asking, you might be under the assumption that there's only one email address for our office, is that correct? That's not.
No, I'm under the assumption that you take input and then you just said that you send it to an email, whatever's the appropriate email address. Why not just put for citizens online, here's the email address to send? So I'm just curious enough for this, but what's the purpose of your job then?
So perhaps I can explain it to you better this way. If you go onto our webpage, ohiolsos.gov, the contact page has a number of different divisions on there, and it says contact elections division, contact campaign finance, contact business, contact notary, contact whoever. At the bottom, there's a general inbox question. And so if someone has a general question, they will use that inbox. And so for example, we have, like it says business services, right? Well, if you're a church, you might think, well, I'm not a business, so I'm not going to, email business. However, our business services division handles nonprofits, right? And so I would forward that email to our business division for them to respond to. So it's on there to the public.
And you know that churches go through that, but you never had any training to teach you that that's where that would go?
Yeah, I mean, the person before me said, hey, if this is a business division, here's what the business services division does. I will oftentimes, if I get an email, I will call and say, hey, is this an issue you deal with? If the answer is yes, I forward it on.
Okay.
I'm the middleman here.
I don't want to interrupt, but you need to let him finish, and you need to let him finish his question. We have a court reporter here who's trying to make a record, and when you talk over each other, it makes it impossible for our court reporter, okay?
I have no further questions.
Thank you, next.
I have no questions for this witness, and with respect to what you suggested, the witness is excused and not have to work out the whole bill case.
Mr. Hicks, are you okay with that?
I'm good with that.
Mr. Ward, you may be excused. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I call Stephen Caraway.
Would you like to just call his name while you're up, Mr. Hicks?
What?
Could you just call his name while you're up? Thank you. If you would, sir, please stand to be sworn.
Just go up and tell people what you're doing because of that.
I do.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Caraway, and I apologize for last time. You guys can stand out in the hallway the whole time.
The sound part is good.
Mr. Caraway, you're new to our process here, but Mr. Hicks is going to ask you questions, and the court reporter is going to take on anything we have to say. So if you would let him finish his questions. Sure. And I'll give you whatever time you need to finish, and if not, I'll step in, okay? Yes, sir. Thank you, appreciate it.
But I do want to say this, that I'm glad I put the lid on that, and that that is a benefit of this board, with the snack board, on their works as well. So, Mr. Caraway, can you describe just over time your political experience, your pedigree, and how you've been involved in politics over your life?
Sure. Most of my professional career, Mr. Hicks, has been involved in politics or public service in some way. I've worked as a staffer and for a member of the Congress, worked for the governor of Ohio. I've been an elected county official in Adams County. I've been a political consultant, very involved in politics in Southwest Ohio. So it has been a professional journey of mine to be involved in politics in some way or another for a long time.
Now, have you been in elective office, and if so, can you describe your elective office experience?
I was a county commissioner for one term, just shy of one term. I left early and went to work for governor's administration, but I was elected in 2012 as a county commissioner.
Okay, and just you started to answer, and I could already tell, but don't start answering.
Sorry.
Okay, and any other elective offices?
With the exception of a central committee position, precinct captain in my local party,
And what local party is that?
the Republican Party,
What?
Adams County.
Okay, and were you ever an officer within that party?
Well, sure, sure, Mr. Hicks. I have been an officer. I can't say with certainty how long I've been an officer, but it has been for some time, at least 6 to 10 years.
And what officer position did you held within that party?
Treasurer. I think for a time I was secretary and treasurer, but we actually amended our bylaws some time ago to give that role to 2 people, because as you know, it's a lot of work. So we actually split it out for 2 people to do.
Okay, and so in your role as treasurer, did you file the campaign finance reports for the party in Adams County?
Sure, yes.
Okay. Have you been involved in filing, when you were in public office, were you your own treasurer or was somebody else your treasurer?
I believe my wife was my treasurer. It's been almost a decade, Mr.
Okay.
Hicks. I do still have an active campaign account, but now I just file, or my treasurer files, local accountant files my compliance paperwork.
Okay, but let's assume your wife was your treasurer. So during that time you were a public official, did you, when your reports needed to be filed, did you review them, and were you involved in the actually putting together the report, or did you do that? Did your wife do that, or whoever did it in a vacuum from you?
Her and I would have done it together.
Okay. Have you helped other people? Have you ever been a treasurer for somebody else?
I believe that I was a treasurer for a candidate for Court of Appeals. It was a failed bid for Court of Appeals some time ago. I did it, and it was along the line court. It was very different than, the local, dealing with the local board elections versus, the state secretary of state's website. I can't remember what election cycle that was.
Okay, so, but at least once you were
Yes.
the treasurer for somebody else. What's your relationship with Jean Schmidt?
Jean has been a mentor to me. Obviously I served under her direction when she was a member of Congress. She's obviously been in my life, a major part of my life for a long time.
Okay, and you worked for Jean Schmidt?
On several different occasions, both officially and through, campaign work. So obviously in her congressional office, I was there nearly her entire tenure in Congress. And, obviously during her 2020 House campaign, I would suggest to you that I was part of the kitchen cabinet at the very least, because we're very close.
Okay, and then when she got elected, did you work for her?
I did for a very short time. She had asked me to come on board, and I did for a few months. I don't remember exactly how long, but it wasn't long.
Okay, and what about your relationship with Nick Owens?
Nick Owens and I, we first met, I believe, in the special election of 2005. I don't remember when exactly, but he was obviously involved with then candidate Jean Schmidt's operation. We formed a friendship. We have watched each other, we've been very close friends. We've watched each other do very well in our careers. He was very close. He was a best man or a groomsman or something in my wedding. So,
Okay. How would you describe your relationship with him now?
we haven't spoken that often. So probably a little strained since, the primary of 2020.
And why was it strange because of that?
Well, it was an uncomfortable situation, Mr. Hicks. I was tasked with being involved as my company, as being a vendor for JPL and Associates, to assist with Southern Ohio House races, basically anything I-70 South. And Mr. Owens had courted the endorsement of the then speaker, Was fairly confident at some point he may get that endorsement, and sometime in the fall of 2019, he did not get that endorsement, and so, you know, it was certainly strange. It was a rather uncomfortable situation.
I'm gonna come back to that, there's a document I'm gonna look at eventually, but I don't want to interrupt the flow of the questioning. Okay. You mentioned your company, so what, expand on what you mean by your company and what the role of your company was.
Sure. So after I left the administration in 2019, I decided to do consulting and strategy on my own, you know, open up my own shop, so to speak. Not a very big shop considering it was a one-person shop. But my company is Churn Creek Strategies, and I formed sometime in 2019. Admittedly, I took some time off, you know, after leaving the administration. So Churn Creek Strategies is one of my companies that I provide consulting and campaign services to.
Okay. So,
clients.
I mean, I might need to pull this document up, but you might need to give me also. So during the, and I'll probably come back to Churn Creek again, but just because you brought up your company. During, is it a LLC?
It is.
Okay. And you mentioned it was contracted with who?
It was compensated by JPL and Associates.
So if I told you that in the email discovery you provided, to my recollection, you had an invoice in there that was from Churn Creek to Constant Content.
Yes.
So you would agree that you did. That's what I kept looking over here, that your invoicing that was in your discovery was not to JPL, it was to Constant Content.
That is correct.
So, but you said you were contracted with JPL.
Yes.
So can you explain to me why your company that was contracted with JPL was invoicing Constant Content?
Sure. Do you have a copy of the document?
I have that one. I can put it up on the screen and I can tell the commissioners what exhibit it is.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I'm give me a second. Because I have a net set that I printed out here. And you can repeat some. Apologize to the commissioner. Caraway. It's going to be in Exhibit 11 for the printer, Exhibit 11.
Right.
There we go, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to blow this up on the screen. There we go.
Yes.
So this is what I was referring to. So in Exhibit 11, if the commissioners are flipping through that, there's a thing that's invoice that has Churn Creek Strategies at the top, and then there's some additional invoices behind that. And that, and the invoice from you, you would agree, was made out with Constant Content, not the JPL.
That is correct.
I don't appear, could you tell me which page of exhibit 11 that is? I can't find that.
In the original file that I submitted, and all the one we had to submit, is page 198. In the
Okay,
original,
so that is not in your revised powers.
it's not in the net one, yes, correct.
Okay, I'm sorry, I brought the revised power exhibits with the understanding those are the only documents that complainant was going to refer to.
But Mr. Caraway's already admitted that this was made to Constant Content. He asked to see the document, so I think as a courtesy, it makes sense that a document I already is submitted as an exhibit is that he can see it when the witness asks to see the document.
Well, I think that it would be a courtesy to provide a copy of this document, at least tell me that it was going to be used today, when you had previously said it would not be used.
Mr. Bry, I reserve the right, as I told you previously, to use any of the documents that were part of my exhibit submission. I submitted to you a subset to try to make it easier of what I thought it was.
If that's an objection, I'm going to overrule the witness has to see the exhibit. Go ahead, Mr. Hicks.
So I think the question I asked is, you said, let me try to remember, you said you were contracted with JPL and that your invoice, the invoice, and to be fair, there was only one invoice in your discovery to Constant Content. There was no invoices to JPL as I recall. But could you explain why your invoices were to, or invoices were to Constant Content, not JPL.
Sure. By looking, and Mr. Hicks, I do apologize, I have really bad vision.
You can walk up if you want to.
So, yeah, I am nearly certain. Yeah.
Sir, if you would go ahead and go step up and read it, though, if you're going to testify before you go back to your seat.
That's the one,
Yes.
that's the same
Well,
one.
it's a total 15.
There's only one like this, so it's the only, there's only one invoice like that, so.
So this invoice
Should I see
is,
documents that I don't have copies of before they're given to the witness?
Well, then.
From
It's in
his
the
exhibit.
exhibit.
I submitted, John.
It's in the exhibit book. that you have.
It is not an exhibit book that I have. He replaced the exhibit book with a revised exhibit book. There is an exhibit 11 revised exhibit book from which he took this invoice piece of paper out.
Mr. Bryan did not replace the exhibit book. I provided you with a subset of the key, since my exhibit that I submitted were 500 pages. As a courtesy, I provided you a subset of what I thought I was actually going to use to make it easier. Mr. Caraway asked to see the invoice, and it was in my original submission. I think this is nonsense, and we should move forward.
I understand what's in his original submission. Right now, I'm asking to see what was in his revised, not in his revised submission, that I do not have.
Now can you see it?
yes. So this invoice at the very top says Alan Freeman reimbursements. And so what would have happened in this particular case is that there were, as you can see, printing. I mean, it looks like all printing services for literature, letters, etc. Those would have been costs incurred by my company, and then I would have been asking for reimbursement for those expenses.
Did Alan Freeman know you were seeking reimbursement for those expenses?
I can't say with certainty, Mr. Hicks.
So how did you know about the expenses?
Repeat the question, please.
How did you know about the expenses then? And they asked for reimbursement for them?
Well, I would have sent these items to press on his behalf. For example, 5,000 envelopes, number 10 regular. As I recall, Mr. Freeman used a very specific kind of orange that had to be, mixed. And so, I took care of sending these items to press for him to use, or for his campaign. And there's a variety of different places that I may have sent items to press for vendors or folks that do my printing.
And Mr. Freeman was aware of those items or not aware of those items?
He would have been aware because, for example, the 5,000 envelopes, number 10 regular, Freeman 2-color blue, orange, I'm nearly certain Mr. Hicks was a Chase envelope. A letter, that the campaign uses to chase a ballot. You're familiar with chase pieces. So I would have somehow delivered or gotten to at some point these printed products to Mr. Freeman for use of his campaign.
Okay, so he would have been aware of them.
Yeah, he would have been aware. I can't say with certainty that he was aware of everything. I'm checking the invoice, Mr. Hicks, but I mean, these look like all Chase piece related items with the exception of the 4x9 rack cards, 4x9 pieces of lead.
Okay. So why were they billed to Constant Content?
I remember asking about the reimbursement process because obviously, I can't bill the campaign committee directly. So
why not?
For the most part, that would be seen, I believe, as unethical because I am someone that is determining where the printed product goes. And so in this business, you have to be very careful not to give a, application that you are, using one of your preferred printers or your own printer, it's in political business too. So I would have asked for reimbursement. The constant content question, Mr. Hicks.
Yeah.
I remember vaguely asking about a reimbursement process and was told to make my invoice to constant content. And of course that I complied, and that's what I did. I mean, obviously it's a $1,556.28 invoice, so I, needed to get the reimbursement.
Who told you to make your request for payment to Constant Content?
I believe it would have been Anna Lippincott who took care of the financial portion of the billing. I'm nearly certain it would have been Anna Lippincott.
You're nearly certain or you're certain?
Mr. Hicks, it's been nearly 2 years ago. I would have had those kinds of conversations with Anna Lippincott.
Okay. Who paid you for your time and effort?
So my company was compensated by JPL and Associates. So if you mean paying me, I was never paid directly by JPL, my company was.
But your company's one person?
That's correct.
Okay, and your company, I might have asked this, is your company an LLC?
It is, yes.
Okay, so your company, one person was paid. How do you know I didn't find anything in your email discovery that showed anything about you billing or being paid for time on this. How did you get paid and what was your agreement and how much did you get paid?
It was a relatively small amount. I'm trying to remember. It was $4,000 or $5,000 a month. And so Mr. Hicks, have multiple sources of income. And so when I said it didn't necessarily pay me, I don't necessarily draw for personal benefit at that time, check to myself.
So I want to jump back to, so you thought you were instructed to build Constant Content because Trim Creek Consulting billing directly to the treasurer of the campaign for printed materials in your mind would have been unethical?
It would have been, and the other issue would have been, again, the appearance that I would be, adding profit, so to speak, because, in the political vending world, if the way I do it, if I'm dealing directly with a candidate, I have to build in my time, right? My time is built into those services. And so this case was totally different because my company was on a retainer. And so I just asked for the reimbursement. And I stopped to find the entity who, how do I get reimbursed for these items? And was told that Constant Content.
Okay. So I want to just explore, because I don't want to go forward, but because I want to make sure, since you mentioned unethical, that we have what definition you have of ethical and unethical, because I think it apply to other questions. So just so you're saying that if Trim Creek Consulting would have billed the campaign directly, that would have been unethical. So instead, you billed through a third-party company to hide the fact that Trim Creek Consulting was involved in purchasing these items?
Not at all.
So why did you? What would have been unethical about Trim Creek Consulting billing versus using a third-party Constant Content to bill?
Well, first of all, Mr. Hicks, I could not have billed Mr. Freeman's campaign through Constant Content because that company is not set up to do printed services with a tax certification through the Ohio Department of Taxation. So I would have needed to have charged the sales taxes if Mr. Freeman was the direct recipient of my services. And so, I was a third party. They would have been in charge of adding the sales tax to services. I am incredibly, trying to be very careful about making sure that the tax burden on products is met. So it's called wholesaling. It's a wholesale process.
Okay. I'm trying to find that here. So So you're saying it's something to do with sales tax?
That's one of my concerns, yeah, sure.
So with that document, there were, and you don't have it before you, but the commissioners will have it. There were supporting invoices, and from what I see, they all have sales tax on them.
Okay.
So I'm a little confused. So like if I look at, so it would have been the next page in the commissioner's books in this exhibit is from the Informer newspaper.
Sure.
And it has sales tax on it.
Okay.
I mean, I can look at the other ones and see what they have.
Again, I don't have these pages.
And the witness.
And neither does the witness.
Right, neither does the witness.
The witness also very badly needs something to drink. My water is out in the hallway. Can I retrieve it or?
Let's take a 5-minute recess. Okay, all right, we're recessing for 5
You
minutes.
can put that in your chair, it's not mine.
It's fun.
Is it your, would you like that?
Right here, just leave it there for now.
Yes, I brought the stuff.
Oh my gosh, I didn't understand what you're saying. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, next time just whack me in the head.
It's all right.
The day.
That sounds like an offer.
You what?
That sounds like an offer. Whack you in the head.
No, it's all on camera.
Would you like me to? Otherwise, it would have been fine.
It's how you doing on battery life? Okay.
3 hours.
Looking for a lot of different twists of it.
Laptop charger.
Oh, no, you're the best.
Sharing
What
one.
kind of?
There's a lot of healthy stuff, and then there's those M&M, peanut M&Ms.
I know, look at the hands hovering over them.
I kept looking and going,
You know, I've got my phone with me, he said he's good on battery.
That's awesome.
Average.
There's a couple of chocolate covers.
Oh, no, because we've got the small round.
Yeah, oh, yeah, that, yeah. I
Yeah.
have that at the office, but my computer now doesn't have that.
Dennis, you ready to
You're a
proceed?
disruptor today.
Pardon me, you ready to proceed?
You know, that's what we need disruptors.
Everybody ready? Go ahead, Mr. Hicks.
I'll take that pen.
Okay, I know you don't have the documents in front of, these documents in front of you, I know this, but at this point, not only did I submit them on my original submissions, but at this point, also, I think these documents are a form of impeachment, because he stated that he did this because it was invoiced a certain way because of sales tax considerations.
If you're going to cross-examine the witness about a document, you need to show the document to the witness.
I know.
Okay.
So,
Hold on.
There's no question, and he's trying to impeach his own witness, both of which are improper. You should ask the question before.
okay. So, when you, several of the invoices, not all of them, that rolled up into that, had sales tax charged on them. You just stated that you invoiced them a certain way because of sales tax considerations. You want to clarify that?
I would object to having the questioner tell him the invoices without showing him what his own invoice.
I think you need to show the witness the exhibit, Mr. Hicks.
So do you want to, does the commissioner want to share this, or do you want to walk up to the screen and be able to see them?
I would prefer to have a hard copy, Mr. Hicks. We have a hard
So can
copy.
you come over here?
Is this the one?
There's actually, you might want to just hand them the little stack. The invoices that you see there, Commissioner, are the ones that we're supporting to this bigger, the top invoice.
Mr. Hicks, it'd probably be easier if you shared them, because this is your case, it's not our case. Mr. Bryan, have these been provided to you?
From other commissioners, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you would agree, Mr. Caraway, that not all, but some or most of those invoices have sales tax charged on them?
That is correct.
So you had said that you had to bill it this way. One of your explanations was to do with sales taxes, but the underlying invoices had sales tax.
Well, so for example, the Griffin printing does not have a sales tax. The Printograph does have sales taxes, but I will tell you that if it is shipped
If it is shipped, they charge Kentucky sales, no. If it is shipped, they charge no sales tax. If it is picked up at their Kentucky facility, they do charge the sales tax, which gets a little confusing. And so, and obviously the person that did the billing at the Southern Ohio Publishing Group charged the rate of 7.25%. So absolutely, a few of these did have sales tax items, expenditures, not all of them did.
But you would still maintain that part of the reason you had this billing approach had to do with sales tax?
Absolutely.
Okay. Were you paid? Were you reimbursed for that invoice?
Yes.
Okay, and on a check, a wire transfer?
It would have been a paper check.
A paper check from Constant Content?
Do you want me to guess?
No.
Okay, you know, I do a significant amount of deposits, you know, both large and small, multiple accounts. I can't remember what the deposit slip and the check looked like.
Did, how did you know that how were you paid by JPL? You said you were paid by JPL. How were you paid by them?
It was an electronic deposit every month, I believe.
Did, to your recollection, I don't want you to guess, but did the bank statement say it was from JPL?
Mr. Higgs, I haven't looked at a bank statement of mine in many, many years. I do look, obviously, on the online portal. I'm nearly certain that it said JPL and Associates.
Okay. So did you have did Churn Creek Strategies, or do you have any sort of arrangement letter or statement of work for your services you were providing to them?
No.
And was that your why?
I am not sure why I wasn't provided a scope of work or, you know, what did you call it again?
An arrangement letter or statement of work?
No, no, there was nothing.
Agreement. Yeah. Okay. So who hired Churn Creek Strategies?
JPL and Associates. I had met with Mr. Longstrap and Ms. Fitzmartin, and they hired.
And what did they? So it was a verbal agreement. What were the services you were to provide in that verbal agreement?
General campaign consulting. Again, I spoke earlier of a lot of the map in Ohio in 2020. There was a significant number of House races that were vacant, term limited, competitive seats, whatever the case.
Okay.
And so I was to consult on races south of 70.
Okay.
Interstate 70.
What races?
I can't say with certainty all of the races because obviously some are more involved than others. Some of them didn't have primaries, for example, that, you know, we were preparing them, doing candidate development.
Let me narrow the question. In our region, Adams, Brown, Claremont.
Sure.
You live in Adams.
Right.
I live in Claremont. What races were you involved with under with JPL?
Alan Freeman and Gene Schmidt.
Okay. And were either of those candidates endorsed by the Ohio Republican Party?
No.
Okay. Did, what was Jeff Longstreth's role at that time as it related to the Ohio Republican Party?
Can you repeat the question, please?
What was Jeff Longstreth's role at that time as it related to the Ohio Republican Party?
I am not sure exactly what you were asking.
Did he have any specific role that you were aware of involving the Ohio Republican Party or the House caucus or, you know, any of that? You know, did he have a specific role associated with one of those formal entities that are associated with the Ohio Republican Party or the House caucus?
And by House caucus, do you mean House Republican Campaign Committee?
Yes.
So I understood Mr. Longstrap's role to be the chief political advisor to the speaker. And that included HRCC, the House Republican Campaign Committee, and also, taking care of political affairs that were the pleasure of the speaker or priority of the speaker. I do not know what his role would have been with the Ohio Republican Party.
So did he have, what's your title now? What do you do now?
So I am with the Ohio House Republican Alliance, and I take care of campaign strategy and consulting throughout Ohio.
What's the difference between that and the HRCC?
Well, it's a new entity, but it is there to protect the membership and also to elect Republicans to maintain a strong majority in the Ohio House.
Okay, at any point in time, did you have a title related to the HRCC?
I don't know, Mr. Hicks, I don't necessarily know of a title with HRCC.
Let me narrow the question. At any point in time, in say the last 2 years, have you been an employee of the HRCC or compensated by the HRCC?
No.
Okay. You said you worked for Jean Schmidt recently when she got elected.
You need to speak out loud. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
I believe so. Repeat the question. I want to make sure I answer.
You said you worked for Jean Schmidt after she got elected. Her current House term.
Correct.
Okay. And then you left working for her.
Yes.
And who did you go to work for?
OROC, the House Republican organization.
Well, so help me, OROC hasn't existed since the Rosenberger.
So,
days.
sir, you said OROC.
Yeah.
There is a very clear difference. It's ORA, OHRA.
Oh, okay.
Rather
I'm
than
sorry.
OHROC. Yeah.
Okay. So just to be clear, at the time, I want to re-ask this just because I'm confused. Was Jeff Longstreth in your mind during the 2020 primary campaign the main guy or the poobah or whatever of the HRCC?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware of the Ohio Republican Party and the endorsement process that they have?
I am aware that they have an endorsement process. I do not know the details of the State Central Committee and their bylaws, but I do know that they have the authority to endorse at their pleasure.
But you also were aware that Jean Schmidt and Alan Freeman were not endorsed candidates of the Ohio Republican Party.
Objection asked and answered.
So, okay, and did it strike you as, did Jeff Longstreth, how often did you talk with Jeff Longstreth during this whole period of the 2020 primary? How regularly did you speak with him personally?
Not regularly at all. I have thought about several times about how many conversations I would have had with Mr. Longstreth, and I am confident that it was half a dozen, and no more than 8 to 10.
Okay. Do you know Rob Sikora?
I do.
Sikora, I might be saying it wrong, but, okay. And did you know at that point in time what his role was?
I would have, yes, I would have known that Rob, I believe, was the executive director of the state party.
Okay. Were you aware of, did anybody at any time, well, let me ask you a different way. Did you ever wonder why you were being tasked to support candidates that were not endorsed by the Ohio Republican Party?
No, because they had the endorsement of the Speaker of the House. And I mean, obviously that was where, my work came in, was with House Republicans and, taking care of the goals or the political goals of the Speaker.
Okay. So you were through Turnberry Consulting, you were a contractor, what have you, consultant to the Speaker's organization or to HRCC or however you want to call it. You think you were paid about $4,000 or $5,000 a month, is that correct? Who gave you direction?
Primarily, my main point of contact, Mr. Hicks, was Megan Fitzmartin, her and I spoke on a fairly regular basis.
So you characterize it during this period, you maybe talked to Jeff Longstreth personally, would you say like eight, you said 8 to 10 times or something
It
like
was
that?
very, very little, a few times. I'm sorry, I can't quantify the exact number, but it was limited.
But, okay, so just so I can put it in terms of the calendar, because we're talking about a period that is, you know, a fairly narrow period of time. So if I look at that period of time, I could say, I could interpret, 8 to 10, that would mean like once a week, but help me to understand on a weekly, during this primary, how often on a weekly basis during that period of time?
Specifically once that I recall, and that was after the governor had delayed the primary. I believe we were on a call with Mr. Longstreth, more of a, wasn't necessarily about strategy, it was more about checking in on everyone during the pandemic, how are you all doing? The legislature had not yet acted, provided an act.
Have you ever done a finance report that involved an in-kind contribution being reported?
For myself personally, or
where you were treasurer with?
I do not recall ever doing an in-kind. It is possible, certainly, but I don't remember doing an in-kind.
Do you feel familiar with in-kind, what it means, what the definition is?
Yes.
Okay. So when you were a consultant, did anybody ever ask you for information on how much time you were spending with each candidate to facilitate reporting to the candidates on what in-kind they should be showing for your time?
No.
Did that strike you as odd?
Not necessarily, because, again, going back to my role as a campaign strategist, again, the way I've always done business is, if I have a client, for example, a candidate, Betty Buckeye, I provide everything for her, literature, strategic advice, digital, whatever the case. I am adding my cost, in some cases significant cost, for my services into that product. And so to like an attorney or an accountant who would bill hourly, I have never done that, Mr. Hicks. I've never billed hourly for my service.
Well, I'm just referring to getting breakdowns for reporting for in-kind contributions. Did you receive a 1099?
So can you walk me through what?
So 1099, if you were a consultant,
yes,
you would normally receive a 1099 afterwards with the totals for tax purposes of how much your consulting was in your role.
Yes, I am nearly certain I did receive a document. I do not necessarily look at all of that stuff. I keep it in a pile and hand it over to my accountant when the time comes to.
And how do you think you would have received that?
I'm sorry?
So you stated you got paid by wire transfers. How do you think you received the 1099, or do you recall how you received it?
It would have most likely been U.S. mail.
Okay. Okay. Did it strike you as odd? Are you aware of yourself showing up on any campaign finance reporting in the 2020 primary cycle anywhere?
Relative to
anything?
Individually, Stephen Caraway or one of my companies? And
specifically Stephen Caraway or Churn Creek Consulting?
Specifically with House races or other races?
Any race.
So it is possible that my company would have been listed on finance reports for multiple candidates because, I was running or involved in multiple primary House races in multiple counties and parts of the state, most of the county. But so I'm trying to give you a truthful answer. I want to make sure I'm clear in reference to a House race. I'm not sure if my name would appear to one of my companies.
Did you think that during the 2020 primary cycle, the manner of way, invoicing was happening or the amounts of money that were being thrown out, did it strike you as odd?
Could you define odd?
Very unusual, very atypical of any normal political race. You said you've been involved in a lot of races. Was the 2020 primary cycle to you odd in terms of the amount of money or the activities or the invoicing or any aspect?
As you know, Mr. Hicks, campaigns, particularly in 2020 and 2021, are very expensive. Everything is very expensive, consultants, mail, all of that. I did know that there was obviously large mail projects and things like that going out. Did I really stop and think, my goodness, this is a ton of money? Not necessarily, because again, I've been involved in several House races within, I mean, Mr. Hicks, a House race, a competitive one can cost, $300,000 in some cases, depending on what media market. It can cost 7 figures. So obviously for a primary in Southwest Ohio, the campaigns were obviously well funded.
Okay, so I didn't know that. So you were saying it didn't seem odd to you compared to any other primary race?
I'm having trouble understanding odd. The campaigns were well funded. I mean, there certainly wasn't a lack of resources with those campaigns.
Okay, I'm going to jump back and ask some other simpler questions. What's your relationship, or during this period, prior to this period, what relationship, if any, did you have with Megan Fitzmartin? Prior to the primary.
So prior to me or my company being contracted or being compensated by JPL, or pre that?
Prior to the 2020 primary, so let's say prior to September of 2019.
So obviously at that period of time, we would have been doing some candidate development. There were, as I recall, a couple of candidates that were first-time candidates, and obviously that is a lot of work when there is a candidate that has never ran for public office before, for example. And so it would have been a fairly slow period, but certainly there was work being performed in anticipation of the 2020 cycle.
So I should have asked a better question. When did you first start being paid for your work on the 2020 primary?
I believe that it was probably July or August of 2019 when I actually
started being paid. So prior to July or August of 2019, did you have any prior relationship or working with Megan Fitzmartin?
Excuse me. We had worked together on a few primaries. I was obviously unpaid at that time. I had a different job with a few House races in that part of the state. I also knew Miss Fitzmartin because of her prior employment with the administration. I would certainly have known who she was at that time. So we weren't particularly close, but I would.
Okay. During the course of the campaign from July, and I'm more interested in when we get to the heat of the campaign, not the development time. What was your relationship? Maybe let's say specifically more in the heat of the campaign from say October, November of 2019 through the end of the primary, April 28th. What was your relationship with Megan Fitzmartin? How often did you talk? Just characterize how you worked together with her.
I would object. There are several questions I would ask that only one be asked at a time.
I think that's fair, Mr. Hicks. Rephrase your question.
Describe for me in expansive terms your relationship with Megan Fitzmartin and your interactions over the course of the primary from September 2019 to September 2019 to March or April 28th, 2020.
So as I testified before, the fall of 2019 would have been a fairly slow period. I would not say that Ms. Fitzmartin and I spoke on a daily basis, every other day, every third day. Certainly during the heat as you explained it, of the campaign, there would have been near daily interaction.
Okay. With Megan Fitzmartin.
Correct.
And what would those interactions have been during the heat of the campaign?
About candidate issues, for example. Candidate XYZ has an issue or having a problem, or, what's the situation? What's the deal with this? So I can't obviously remember all of those conversations, but it would have been about general candidate and campaign things. Well, so for example, how is Mr. Candidate, Mr. Freeman, whomever, doing on door to door? How, just general, I'm having trouble. Mr. Hicks, you've been involved in a campaign, there's just a lot of parts of a campaign, whether it's signage or literature or strategy or, voter contacts. So I'm having trouble understanding exactly.
So why don't we take those in order, okay? So I'm trying to remember the order you said, signage, the development, design, purchase, and placement of signage. Were you involved with Megan Fitzmartin on any of that?
She would have certainly known about what, are we referring to Mr. Freeman, or are we in general?
That's a good point. Let's make it specific to Mr. Freeman.
And you asked about signage?
Yes.
So she would have certainly have been aware, for example, that I was executing a sign order on behalf of Mr. Freeman.
Okay. Would you have known the amount of that order?
Probably not.
Who from that Freeman campaign would have been the person checking to make sure the campaign had the money for those signs?
That would have been the campaign treasurer.
So how often did you have interactions with Susan Jones, the campaign treasurer?
Not often, because again, the limited things that I would have executed, the very limited purchases that I would have executed, obviously some literature and some signs, I would have known that there was sufficient cash on hand to handle that expenditure.
You should say that again, the last part.
I would have known that there was sufficient cash on hand to take care of a sign order. And I believe as part of the discovery, I don't remember what the sign order amount was.
Yeah, okay. All right, so how often did you meet with Alan Freeman during the course of the campaign? Let me rephrase that. In the heat of the campaign, so let's say November, through April, how often did you meet with Alan Freeman, and how often did you meet with Alan Freeman? Meet or have conference calls?
So Mr. Freeman and I would speak fairly regularly. Obviously, Mr. Freeman has, had some campaign experience, so my, if you will, guidance would have been less needed for someone like Mr. Freeman. So I would not say, particularly during the fall of 2019, that we would have had daily or weekly interaction. I maybe once, twice a week. Now, obviously, you go into the heat of the primary, that's probably dramatically different.
So in the heat of the primary time, define for me the heat of the primary time frame.
Probably right after New Year's,
okay.
and through the extended.
Okay. So during the heated time after New Year's, on average, how often did you meet physically with Alan Freeman?
I believe Mr. Freeman and I were in the room. We shared the room together maybe 3 to 5 times. I mean, there was a restaurant. There was a restaurant there somewhere in Claremont County. I know we met there, and I believe at a program, like a Starbucks, and so limited. I can't remember every occasion.
And who else was present at those meetings?
So I know maybe Mr. Freeman and I alone on one. There was also a time or two that RJ Mancini was present, and I believe Luke Householder was present on at least one occasion.
Okay. Well, since you mentioned Luke Householder, what was Luke Householder's role relating to the Alan Freeman campaign?
Mr. Hicks, I believe he was a door knocker. The books and, going out and hitting the street, knocking on doors.
Who paid for him?
I am uncertain. I don't know.
You don't know that he was paid, or you don't know who paid him?
It was my understanding that he was voluntold to come to Southern Ohio and knock doors for a couple of candidates.
Where did he live?
Do you want me to guess? I mean,
I would object to him guessing. The witness.
No, I don't want you to guess, but I want you to answer.
I certainly lived with his parents, so.
Where did he live during the campaign?
There is a hotel, if you want to call it a hotel, in Claremont County, somewhere in the East State area, I believe he stayed.
Okay. How often did you and I talk during the campaign?
Mr. Hicks, you and I have talked a lot over the years, so I occasionally, certainly.
Okay, and I would say not that many years. When would you say you first knew me?
I don't know, maybe when you were running for county auditor, maybe?
Okay, so that would have been 2018, that's where I would place it. So you don't recall where Luke Householder was staying specifically?
It was a hotel, or it was a motel in Claremont County, in the East State area.
Okay, if I told you that we personally had a discussion after I made a video of him at that hotel, where you told me that you had booked the hotel and it was on.
I did not book the hotel, sir.
So you're denying that you told me in a conversation that you booked the hotel?
I do not remember booking the hotel. I wouldn't have had access to book a hotel. I mean, I wasn't paying for the hotel. I don't even know how many nights Mr. Householder was in. I mean, it was a short amount of time, so.
I'm gonna play a video. It's in, I'll tell you what exhibit number it is. Do you recognize that vehicle?
I believe so. I don't believe I ever personally witnessed Mr. Householder get out of that vehicle or was around that vehicle, but I'm certainly aware of the video.
Okay, and do you know where the video came from?
You shot the video.
Okay, and do you know where you sold the video?
I believe on your Facebook page.
Okay, and I'm just gonna play the rest of it. This is a sticker. You recognize that person? I can play it, let me play it through.
In fairness, he's very covered up, but I'm certain that's Luke Householder.
Okay. Let me just play it. I don't know if there's it's just in drawing out. Let me go back.
For the record, Mr. Hicks, what video, what
So
exhibit?
that
is
was exhibit, hold on. Apologize, it is exhibit number 24.
Thank you.
I want to get back to the picture. So when you see that picture, do you recognize the hotel?
The logo on the sign, could you blow it up, please?
I don't know that I can. You can walk up there.
I can show them
The picture, okay.
Sure, that's the day's end.
Okay, are you familiar with where that basin is located?
I'm not, I know it's in Eastgate. I think right down the road from your home.
Okay.
But I don't exactly know where your home is in this township.
Do you ever do any shopping at Lowe's or at Home Depot?
I would object. I'm not sure what this line of question has anything to do with as interesting as this, with anything in this case, where he shops.
I'm gonna overrule it.
Lowe's or Home Depot? Are you asking regularly, or have I been in a Home Depot?
Do you shop ever at Lowe's and Home Depot in the area in which you and I live?
I may have been at a Lowe's, but I would go to Lowe's in Maysville, Kentucky. I needed to be at Lowe's.
Okay, not the Lowe's. Okay, so you wouldn't go to the Lowe's, in fact, off of Beachmont, you would go to the Lowe's in Maysville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so you said you met, I think you said 3 to 5 times in person during the campaign. How often did you talk on the phone?
With whom?
Alan Freeman. I'm gonna come back to Luke Elsilver.
How many times or how often?
How often? During the heat, January, he described as January through April 28th, I guess.
I would say near daily or every other day, every third. I mean, certainly there were plenty of interaction.
Okay. Did you ever talk about his media?
Media in the form of what?
TV commercials, radio ads?
So I'm certain that we would have had a conversation about media, for example, a film shoot or a photo shoot. As far as radio, no.
Okay. So I'm going to play a different thing. And it's going to be exhibit number, I'm going to play the short TV commercial. It's exhibit number 22A, thanks, right? 22A.
A small business owner, a strong conservative, a family man, Alan Freeman will bring these same conservative values to the Ohio House, building business and a better Ohio for all our families. Alan Freeman for State Representative.
Are you familiar with that, Ed?
I am.
Did you during this campaign have the ability to post on Alan Freeman's campaign Facebook page?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So how are you familiar with this ad?
Well, for a few reasons. First of all, I do recollect seeing it on Mr. Hicks's, or I'm sorry, you're Mr. Hicks, Mr. Freeman's social media, Facebook page. I am also familiar with, for example, the scene right there. I was present for that video shoot, that film shoot. It was a restaurant somewhere in Claremont County. I can't remember.
How about this one?
Was I there present for that? Yes.
Okay, so you're present at this one.
So when we say this one, what are you referring to, Mr.?
That's the office setting.
What's the exhibit that you're referring to?
22A,
Same one, okay, thank you.
Okay, it's just different parts in the video. So you were present at the office setting. Do you recognize where that office is?
Yeah, that is a RE/MAX office in somewhere in Claremont County.
Whose office is it?
It is it Hoffman Real Estate, or it is a real estate firm, and it's like a RE/MAX franchise. I don't exactly know how many agents work out of there, obviously.
I think you've answered but how's it connected to either of the campaigns?
The office?
Yeah.
So when you would go do a film shoot, you obviously need places to film. A variety of places, a school, an office. Offices are very popular.
So how is this office connected to the campaign?
Well, it wasn't necessarily connected to Mr. Freeman's campaign. It was a place that we shot numerous candidates' footage that day in that office.
How are the Hoffmans related to any of the candidates?
So the Hoffmans are, or it may not be the last name of Hoffman, but that is Representative Schmidt. It is her family, a member of her family's business.
Is it in fact her sister or sister-in-law?
I know it's a family business, Mr. Hicks, so I'm not sure exactly who is in the firm.
Okay. And you were present at this scene?
That's correct.
Being shot? And were you present at this scene being shot?
I believe so, because it looks like that was shot on the same day. My memory is a little blurry. It's a really busy day, but I think, remember that.
Do you recognize that location?
It looks like a kitchen, and we went to a home somewhere in Claremont County.
And it's just a random home?
No, it was, I don't remember the lady's name, but it was a relative or a close friend of Representative Schmidt.
Okay, so it was the two venues had something connection to Jean Schmidt or her family.
Correct.
And this is another venue where multiple candidate shots were filmed?
I'm certain.
Okay. And let me see here. Now, obviously, I think that's just stock footage. This scene, you remember being present at this?
Yes.
Okay, so who else was present at this?
There was no other candidate present that day. It was Mr. Freeman. That is
non-candidate.
Myself, obviously the proprietor there on the right-hand side of the screen, and Mr. Freeman.
Okay. I want to show a different exhibit now. This is going to be exhibit number 23. Exhibit number 23. It's another commercial. I think it's 15 seconds. So.
Not endorsed by Ohio Electronic Pie. Owens claims he's pro Second Amendment, but failed to earn the highest rating from Buckeye Firearms Association. Truth is, we can't trust Big Owens. Alan Freeman is endorsed by Ohio Electronic Pie and being rated by the NRA and Buckeye Firearms Association. Vote conservative. Vote Alan Freeman. Rhode Island United is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Okay, so for this commercial, do you recall whether you were present at this filming?
Yes, that's at a restaurant in Claremont County. I just can't remember the name of the restaurant.
Okay, but it was done at the same time as the other commercial? Did you go to the restaurant 2 separate times for filming a Alan Freeman commercial versus a Growth and Opportunity Tech commercial, or were they both filmed at the same time?
All I can answer with certainty, Mr. Hicks, is that footage was filmed on the same day, at the same time.
And you were present when this took place?
Correct.
Okay. And then you already said you were present here in the shop, whatever this guy's shop.
Yes.
Okay, so you were present, and that also took place on the same day?
No, I don't believe it did. It was sometime in January of 20, but that was not.
No, I'm not talking about whether it was the same day as the restaurant. I'm talking about whether it was the same day as the footage that was in the other commercial in the same setting.
I'm having trouble understanding. I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
So the filming of this footage in the wood shop, was it done on the same, the footage that was in the Alan Freeman commercial and the footage that's in this Growth and Opportunity Tech commercial, were those done at the same time, or same day, and were you present for both?
I was present when this film was shot.
Okay.
There wasn't 2 separate occasions that the film was shot and then.
Okay, just to be clear, okay. But you were present at all that filming that I highlighted, not the stock footage stuff.
Right.
By the way, just as an aside, this footage at the end, were you present when this was filmed? It's sort of uniquely different footage.
It is. I did not watch that particular set be shot, but I I don't really want to speculate, I don't want to give you something that isn't truthful. But I believe that that was shot at the same time that all of the other footage was.
Okay. But do you remember being at this, wherever that is? I can't place that.
Well, it's on the outside, so I'm not, I believe it was part of the main film shoot, you know, the day of shooting.
Okay, I want to play exhibit 25B. So 25B, just the last few seconds of it. I can play the whole thing, it's a 60-second radio ad. But I want to ask you if at the end you can identify the voice reading the disclaimer on the ad. So I'm going to kind of, if you allow me, I'm going to.
Nick Owens claims he'll represent our values, but if Owens is a true conservative, why do conservative us? Send true conservative Alan Freeman for state representative. Paid for by the committee to elect Alan Freeman.
Do you recognize that voice?
We'll stipulate that voice without fail. We've had testimony, we don't need further.
Okay. 25B. Okay. But just from there's been testimony, but do you recognize the voice or not?
Yeah.
Maybe the other person was mistaken, Mr. Bryan.
I just stipulated.
So, all right, so, okay. Did you ever discuss campaign finances with Alan Freeman?
Mr. Hicks, could you define campaign finances?
Can I interrupt for just a second? We just had somebody step in. Are you going to end up being a witness in this case?
No, I'm not worried.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. We can move over to the other side. So, let me ask you this, what kind of discussions would you have with Megan Freeman about campaign costs or finances? I'm sorry, Megan Fitzmartin or Alan Freeman about campaign costs or finances.
Object to the formative question. He can answer what discussions he did have. He cannot answer what discussions he would have or would have had.
I said, what kind of discussions did you have with Alan Freeman or Megan Fitzmartin around campaign finances or costs?
During the heat of the campaign,
Yeah.
obviously, general questions, for example, Mr. Freeman, part of the responsibility that a candidate has is to raise the necessary funds for expenditure. So obviously, Mr. Freeman had scheduled a finance event or a fundraiser or two. I'm not exactly sure how many he had. I think I was present for at least one of those. I would have probably reported back, hey, it was, good event, bad event. Frankly, I don't remember exactly how his.
Let me separate out being at an event with discussions about the campaign's overall finances, fundraising, media expenditures, other expenditures, and the affordability of them.
I do not recall having any specific conversations at the time during the campaign of this is going to cost X, Y, and this amount and this amount and this amount.
Okay, when you saw the ads start to appear on TV, was it a surprise to you?
Mr. Hicks, I don't have broadcast television at my home, even though I am in the Cincinnati media market. I don't see those, is what I'm trying to say.
So were you aware that there was a large amount of ads appearing on TV?
At what point
during the heat of the campaign?
There were ads. Obviously, I believe there were a couple of ad buys. So can you tell me exactly which one? I mean, I don't know what the run would have been. I'm sure there were television ads up. I knew obviously they.
So if we believe what Strategy Media has presented, $138,000 worth of ads ran in a period from about February 24th to March 17th in that general time frame.
So about 30 days?
Yeah, probably a little less. They would probably say it was a little squeezed. I probably was a little on the front end.
I would object, there's been no question.
He's asking the question. Go ahead, Mr. Hicks.
So that amount, during that period, were you aware of a large volume of ads appearing on TV, even though you don't have broadcast TV at your home?
Yes.
Okay, did it surprise you?
Not necessarily. Surprised me, I mean, it's the course of a campaign, Mr. Hicks. I mean,
Okay. Were you involved in any discussions about those ads appearing?
Television? I don't believe so.
You don't believe so?
No.
Okay. Did you tell anybody contrary to that? Did you tell, now you just testified under oath that you were not aware. Did you tell anybody, I guess, did to them that you did know about them or the magnitude of the cost?
I would object. There's several questions. The witness is entitled to answer one question.
So I would have known, obviously, that there was a television buy, television purchase. Obviously, Mr. Hicks, I did not book the ads. I was not part of the budget discussion of the ads. So I wouldn't have known exactly what the ads cost. I can guess all day long. The Cincinnati media market is one of the most expensive in the state. Obviously, having prior experience in television ad or, understanding what those cost, I would have known.
And what would have been your guess?
Objection. The witness is not entitled to be asked to guess.
Sustained.
What would be your estimate based on the volume and the discussions that you were hearing about and your testimony that the Cincinnati market was expensive? Order of magnitude, how much money would you have thought was being spent?
I would object. The form of the question asks for an opinion. He has not been authenticated as someone who has an opinion or has an expert basis to give an opinion about what it would cost for an amount of ads that he has already testified doesn't know how many ran.
Overruled.
Next question.
If I can remember it. Based on what you were hearing, since you don't have broadcast TV, on the volume of ads that were appearing in that heated moment time period, and based on your experience and you just in the Cincinnati market, what order of magnitude cost would you think would have applied to such magnitude of a buy of ads?
I would say obviously north of six figures.
Okay.
Certainly.
Were you, okay, you said you were involved with Alan Freeman's fundraising, or going to a fundraising event at least.
Yes.
Are you aware of how much total money Alan Freeman raised for his campaign?
Mr. Hicks, I am not sure of the exact amount. Obviously, that would be publicly available. I know it was 100,000 plus, but I'm not sure the exact amount.
If I told you it was approximately 114,000, do you have any reason to dispute that number?
No.
Or does that sound about right?
Yeah, absolutely.
At the end of the campaign, after April 28th, are you aware of how much money Alan Freeman still had in his account?
Are you asking at that time how much or
Yes.
now?
At that time?
At that time, I probably did not know how much until the post primary report would have been filed.
And do you remember order of magnitude when he filed his post-primary report, how much money was left in his campaign account?
Mr. Hicks, at that point, Mr. Freeman, respectfully, no disrespect, Mr. Freeman, he wasn't my issue anymore. He had been defeated in the primary. I gleaned that knowledge through other people, including yourself. And so I knew that he had around $100,000 left in the kitty, so to speak.
So what you just testified to is the scope of the ad buy being north of six figures based on your long political experience.
I would object. That's not proper characterization of his testimony.
Overruled. Go ahead.
So based on that, when you found out from me or from that he had, close to 100,000 still in his campaign account after raising 115, did that strike you as odd?
Not trying to be funny, obviously odd. It was unusual, certainly, that a candidate for any public office or any office has that expenditure in their bank account following an election. I mean, generally, you spend these things down, you get a bill, you spend it down, and usually campaigns running on fumes. They don't even have enough money to buy hors d'oeuvres at the party on election night. You spend all of the money.
So, okay, so it seems odd to you that there was so much, as a percentage of his campaign account that was still in the account after his post-primary.
I'll concur.
Okay, and, okay, did you have any discussions with Alan Freeman about that, the ad campaign that you were aware of, but didn't see because of not having broadcast TV, of any concern that that ad campaign might exceed his resources to be able to pay for such a campaign?
I do not recollect having a direct conversation with Mr. Freeman about his ad buy or the fact that, you know, if the buy was in excess of his cash on hand, that wouldn't have been in my wheelhouse.
Okay. Did the candidate express any concern to you at any point in time that there was some sort of unauthorized ad buy going on?
During the campaign?
Yeah.
Not that I can recall.
Okay. Were you also aware of a significant amount of direct mail that was associated with the campaign?
Can you define significant, please?
So let's say if you take a district mailer for a House race, significant being more than 4 or 5 mailers in a cycle.
Yes.
And how many mailers would you estimate in the cycle you saw or were aware of that Alan Freeman sent out? I'm not talking about unique designs, I'm talking about number of drops.
Okay, so are you referring to the number of mail projects or the quantity per mail project?
I'm referring to the type of mailing that a political candidate does that targets likely voters to try to get them to vote for them, which in our district might be 5,000 to 10,000 households that you would hit with that kind of mailer. I'm not talking about chasers and stuff. That kind of mailer, were you familiar with the size and scope of and volume of what Alan Freeman's campaign was doing?
Specifically, the number of households is what you're asking, correct?
No, I'm asking the number of times mailers were dropped to large volumes of households in an organized way.
Okay, thank you. I understand now. Multiple. I would agree with your assessment. It was 5 to 10. I did not see on most occasions those, you know, pieces of art, you know, for instance, the artwork before it went out. So, but I'm nearly certain that each candidate mail plan is around 8 to 10 mailers, depending on the competitiveness of the race.
Okay. Did you ever on mailers or on your testimony here today is on mailers or media have discussions with Alan Freeman about the size, scope, cost of those projects?
No, sir, that is not in my wheelhouse as far as, hey, this is the cost of this project, because I didn't handle the mail, for example. I didn't book the media. So I wouldn't have known. I could guess all day long. I mean, you know, a standard primary and you know about how many pieces.
So you said 5 to 10 large scale mail projects.
Define large, sir.
I already did, 5 to 10,000 type range.
Sure, I agree.
So what's the right number though? 5, 10, or you don't know?
I don't know the exact amount.
Okay, so do you have an idea of a 5 to 10,000 person mailer, or let's say a 5,000 person, how much typically that costs?
In a primary? Is that, you're asking primary?
I don't think, I think the cost is the same, whether it's primary or the general.
No, it wouldn't necessarily, because the universe would be higher.
I said for a 5,000.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I for a 5,000 piece drop, you're looking at 4,000 to 5,000, depending on what the printing costs were.
So 10,000 would be about how much? Twice that number, or maybe a little cheaper?
It would be cheaper because of obviously the quantity discounts, as you know, postal the postal system, how it depends on how many zones, postal zones that it has to go through. There's many variables. So, for example, a 10,000 piece mailer would probably cost $5,000 to $6,000.
Did you know that the ads in the kind of the final lead up to the then delayed primary on March 17th, when a large number of ads appeared, were you aware in advance that those ads were going to hit the airwaves?
I mean, as far as the exact content, or did I know when they were going to go up?
Did you know that there was a large ad buy that was going to hit the airwaves in the last week or so before the 17th date? Before they appeared on TV, did you know that those were coming?
So I knew of a digital buy. I did not necessarily know of a television buy.
Your testimony here, you did not know.
Of a television buy or a digital buy?
Help me to understand a digital buy versus a television buy.
So a digital buy would be, Facebook, YouTube, digital advertising rather than.
We're not talking about that. I'm talking about cable, television, things that I use my TV to watch.
Yes. I am certain that I knew there was going to be a buy.
Okay. Did you in fact call Nick Owens and give him a tip to let him know it was coming?
I would not say it was a tip. I remember having a conversation with Mr. Owens. As you know, Mr. Hicks, he had a press event earlier in the
March 2nd.
week or whatever it is. I can remember being agitated by that press event. And I may have said, they're probably going to do a big buy on you. You shouldn't have said X, Y, Z. Again, Mr. Hicks, Mr. Owens and I have a very long-standing personal relationship. So it wouldn't have been out of character for me to call.
But I don't want to have a generalization of that based on what you did. I could see him doing this. I'm talking about a specific tip that a buy was being placed and for him to expect it.
I don't necessarily agree with your assertion that it was a tip. It was, in my.
You informed him that it was coming.
Objection, the witness is being interrupted by the question. The witness should be permitted to complete his answer before the new question is posed.
I would agree. Sir, go ahead and finish your answer. Mr. Hicks, please allow him to finish.
Can you ask it again? I'm sorry.
Well, so you informed Nick Owens in advance that you knew that there was a buy that was going to hit the airwaves?
Most likely, yes.
Did Alan Freeman know there was a buy that was going to hit the airwaves?
Yes. I mean, he's a candidate. He would have known that the television purchase was taking place.
So did Alan?
I would object to the form of the answer. It sounds like the witness is speculating rather than stating what the witness knows. The witness is entitled.
Well, then why don't you state what?
Hold on, Mr. Hicks.
But not to speculate about what my candidate would have known.
You'll get the chance to cross-examine him.
Mr. Hicks.
To your knowledge, did Alan Freeman know that there was a buy that was about to hit the airwaves in advance of the ad starting? Yes or no? Or you don't know?
I'm unsure if he knew and what conversations he had with the folks in Columbus about his television ad. I can't tell you if he was given a heads up for whatever.
So the answer is you don't know?
Correct.
How did you know?
I would have found out through Megan Fitzmartin.
And did Megan Fitzmartin knew about the extent of the buy, that it was a major buy? How did you know? So you took, I'm going to re-ask my question, but I want to build it up.
You're asking 3 questions.
So, I'm sorry. This is important for Ohio. Okay, this is important for Ohio. So
I would object to the premising of the question with how important it is for Ohio. Just ask the question.
Just ask the question, Mr. Hicks.
So, now I got to remember the question. Okay, so let me ask you to go backwards a little bit. How did you find out that the ad buy was coming? Megan Fitzmartin said. Okay. How did you come to the realization that it was a significant enough an ad buy that you called Nick Owens to give him the tip off?
Well, I would object to the form of the question. He had previously testified that he would not characterize it as a tip-off.
Okay, so to inform Nick Owens of the ad buy.
Can you repeat the question, please?
So how did you informed Nick Owens of the ad buy? You knew that the ads were coming. This is your testimony. I think your testimony is that you knew it was a significant ad buy, okay?
Are
So,
those all yeses? I see you nodding.
Yes, yes, I'm sorry, sir.
Thank you.
okay, it's a significant ad buy. You testified that Megan Fitzmartin is where you would have found out about the ad buy. So ergo, did you find out about the financial volume of the ad buy from Megan Fitzmartin?
I don't recall that Ms. Fitzmartin gave me a dollar figure. Mr. Hicks, as I testified, if you are going to have an impact in the Cincinnati television market, it's going to be expensive. And, you know, there are 4 broadcast stations, and so if you're buying network television, particularly in Cincinnati, I would bet every penny I've got that it's going to be a 7-figure buy if you're going to have an impact.
Were there, in your work with the householder team, were there certain rules about spending money and never doing it without the candidate being aware and having approved it?
That's correct.
Okay, so how was that rule bent or broken a lot or at all, or was that a firm rule? The candidate needs to approve it before it goes out?
I was always told that the candidate had the final say. The candidate had veto power, the candidate had approval power, that nothing was to go out without the candidate's approval or okay. Now, as far as the content, as far as the budgeting, sir, I do not know the answer to the, but, you know.
Okay, so that's to the question I asked. So your testimony is that Megan Fitzmartin told you about this buy in advance, but you don't know whether she told Alan Freeman. So are you testifying that in that case, you believe that the rules might have been broken, or you don't think would you have any reason to believe that he wanted to know?
Objection, one question should be asked at a time.
Sustained.
So you testified that you weren't sure whether Alan Freeman knew
Do what?
that the ad buy was coming, okay, in advance. But Megan Fitzmartin told you the ad buy was coming in advance. And you testified the rule was we can never do this without candidate approval.
I would object, he's just recited the candidate's testimony, summarized accurately or inaccurately. He should ask a question and not summarize his final argument.
I want to make sure that I'm accurately stating what Mr. Freeman, what Mr. Caraway has testified.
Then ask specific questions.
So, and because then you would say that, but you said that you're unsure whether Megan Fitzmartin knew about whether she informed or anybody informed Alan Freeman of this ad buy?
I would absolutely, again, Mr. Hicks, I don't want to guess. I'm not privy to the phone conversations necessarily between Mr. Freeman and Ms. Fitzmartin. But past practice would have been to have that conversation with the candidate.
Did Alan Freeman ever express to you concern about this ad buy and his ability to pay for it?
Not that I recall.
Did Megan Fitzmartin ever communicate to you concern about the ad buy and his ability to pay for it?
Not that I recall.
Did you ever express concern to anybody about the ad buy and the ability of the campaign to pay for it?
About the ad specifically, we're talking about this buy.
The finance, yeah.
Yeah. No. You're speaking of the television buy right now, correct? Could you re-ask